To start this video, let's take a quick look at streaming services. Ever find yourself wanting to watch something only to scroll endlessly through a bunch of movies and shows you've never seen, only to end up picking something you've already watched just to fall asleep to? Yeah, same. What we're experiencing is quantity over quality. Think about it. Netflix has hundreds of titles, but we usually just go back to what we already know and love. Same thing with Max, especially with Disney Plus. Honestly, I could make a whole video on how Disney went from quality to quantity. It's become a bit of a trope. In video games, they're not exempt from this either. Take Tekken Tag Tournament, for example. That game brought back every character from the first 3 Tekkens, but when you beat it, most of the endings were generic, with only one true FMV belonging to Unknown. It was cool for its time, sure, but it hasn't aged exactly like fine wine. Now, sometimes cramming a game full of characters works. Just look at Mortal Kombat Trilogy back in 1996. Every character came with new mechanics, the game was full of secrets, and it actually felt balanced despite the chaos. Fast forward to 2006, though, and Mortal Kombat decided to drop what was essentially Trilogy 2.0. But where 1996 nailed it, 2006 might have failed it. The result? A game that to some felt more like quantity over quality. Welcome to episode 10 of the Mortal Kombat Takeover. Today, we're fighting Blaze in Mortal Kombat Armageddon.
Finish her! Finish him! Fatality!
Okay, so if you're a new viewer, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. If you love Mortal Kombat as much as I do, check out my entire Mortal Kombat Takeover series, where I covered a ton of the franchise's history. Now, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm not sure if you caught my last video on Red Dead Revolver, but I talked about the Rockstar takeover and how the delay of GTA 6 won't stop me from pushing forward. I made this promise to cover these games, and I intend to keep it. One more thing. I recently ran a poll on what takeover I should do next year, and I'm proud to announce that the people have spoken. Starting on January 3rd, 2026, we're kicking off the Naughty Dog takeover. I'll be covering Crash Bandicoot, Uncharted, The Last of Us, and Jak and Daxter. So if that's your kind of speed, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay in the loop. And if you do enjoy this video, a thumbs up goes a long way. One like really helps push this video out to more people. With that said, let's dive into this.
There have been many powerful warriors throughout the millennia. But ages of mortal combat have begun to tear the fabric of the realms. The critical point has finally been reached. It was foreseen that combatants would one day grow too powerful and too numerous. If left unchecked, their intensifying combat would weaken and shatter the realms and bring about the apocalypse. The Elder Gods demanded a safeguard be put in place to avoid total destruction. One that would make use of the combatants' insatiable bloodlust. Like moths to flame, they would be drawn to battle. At the apex of destruction, alliances will be broken. And old hatreds will be revived. Armageddon has begun.
Okay, so if this is your first Mortal Kombat retrospective of mine, here's a quick recap to catch you up to speed. Back in 1991, Capcom dropped Street Fighter II to massive acclaim. It ruled the arcade scene for the entire year. Naturally, other companies wanted it on the action. One studio in particular wanted to make their own fighting game, originally inspired by Bloodsport and starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. They even approached him, but due to scheduling conflicts, he turned them down. That no led to something even better. John Tobias and a few of his close friends pitched a new idea, and it got greenlit. Tobias, along with Ed Boon, got together and created Mortal Kombat. And this wasn't just any fighting game, it was the bad boy of arcades. The violence alone caused such a stir that led to congressional hearings and eventually the creation of the ESRB. But instead of hurting the game, all that controversy gave it more attention. The result? Mortal Kombat 2 dropped and became the highest grossing arcade game of 1994, cementing Mortal Kombat's place as a heavyweight in the genre. But with success came conflict. Some of the original actors who played characters in the game wanted royalties, especially with how well the home versions were doing. Lawsuits followed. Only one case went into one of the actors' favor, and it led to the removal of several characters in Mortal Kombat 3. Fans weren't happy, so Midway released two updated versions, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Trilogy, to smooth things over. The first three games showed Mortal Kombat's rise, but the next few showed its decline. The fall of '97, Midway had big plans for Mortal Kombat 4, but before that, they released Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero, a game that got a mixed response. Some fans hated it, others gave it a cult fan base. Then came Mortal Kombat Annihilation, and yeah, we don't need to say much about that movie at all. Mortal Kombat 4 wasn't exactly bad, but it left the community divided. It was the final arcade game, a symbolic end of an era. And just when things seemed rough, they got worse. While Mortal Kombat 4 was being promoted, another title was announced: Mortal Kombat Special Forces. John Tobias had originally led the project, but left the company in 1999 with only about 30% of the game completed. Midway, still wanting to cash in on the MK name, pushed forward and released it in 2000. It bombed. Fans hated it. So much so the series was basically put on ice. But 2 years later, Mortal Kombat came back with a vengeance. In 2002, Deadly Alliance brought Mortal Kombat into the 3D era. It was a fresh take and a step forward, and fans appreciated it. Then, in 2004, Mortal Kombat Deception dropped, which many consider the peak of the 6th generation MK era. It introduced new modes, new characters, and an ambitious conquest mode that fans loved. With the franchise back on solid ground, Midway took one more swing at a spinoff, and this time, they nailed it. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks dropped in 2005. It course corrected everything that had gone wrong with earlier spinoffs. It was the third attempt and proved that the third time is really the charm. And with that, we are fully caught up to speed.
The environments in Shaolin Monks are really comprised of existing Mortal Kombat backgrounds, but they're expanded a lot more. So everything that you see, you're probably going to recognize if you're a big Mortal Kombat fan.
So everything in MK2 we wanted to bring to full life, which meant we took a solid background that was basically a 2D background, and now we've made it 3D with fully interactable items, breakables.
Our approach with it was really everything that we've heard that was a rumor, let's make true.
For example, in Goro's lair, it's one of the backgrounds that everyone recognizes immediately.
We had these glowing eyes in the backgrounds, you don't know what it is. But now in Monks, you actually got these creatures that are coming out from the shadows. He actually reveals these cave creatures that come out of the darkness.
Living Force is actually my favorite level brought to life in Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. There are the living trees, and you can throw the enemies into them, and they will eat them. And you actually need to do that to progress through the game.
The pit is by far my favorite of the Mortal Kombat 1 backgrounds. The pit is where I put the reptile character at the bottom of Mortal Kombat 1, and he exists in this version as well. So you get to fight on the bottom of the pit, and you defeat enemies, and then you climb your way up to the top.
The portal is something we liked because one of the big rumors of the portal was that you could get into that portal and it would take you somewhere else. We took that rumor and really embraced it in Shaolin Monks because we use the portal kind of as our hub and travel system through the game. Anytime you see a portal, it's going to take you somewhere. It may be somewhere you want to go, it might be somewhere deadly, or you might have to for story progression.
The Wuxi Academy, it's a nice change in the other backgrounds because it's actually the peaceful background. This is where the good guys live. But the contrast of you got Tarkatans, the Baraka race, running around fighting monks, so you'll see fights up in the hills.
Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks has a lot of interactive backgrounds. When we took these 2D backgrounds and brought them into full 3D, we wanted it to be more than just a visual 3D. We wanted it to be an interactive 3D.
You actually use we call it like a body puzzle system, where you actually use the bodies of your opponents to solve puzzles, throw them onto catapults, throw them into trees, throw them through walls, and you actually use them to advance forward into the game.
Mortal Kombat Armageddon's announcement came out with no secrets. In February of 2006, the game was officially announced. From the jump, they were pushing the fact that this game would have over 60 characters in total. In an IGN article, it stated, in an investor conference call today, Midway announced its upcoming lineup for fiscal year 2006. Chief among those titles listed was Mortal Kombat Armageddon, which should be coming out later this year for the PlayStation and Xbox. According to David F. Zucker, the president and chief executive officer of Midway Games, Mortal Kombat Armageddon will be the culmination of the franchise, featuring every single character that's ever graced the digital screen in the Mortal Kombat universe. Gamers will also have the option to take on the fighters of Outworld and the Earth with Mortal Kombat Armageddon's Creative Fighter mode, which also allows you to tailor your own fighting style to your liking. No details were given about additional game modes such as the Conquest mode from Deception and MK Deadly Alliance. Puzzle combat and chess combat from Mortal Kombat Deception weren't mentioned as well, so it's unknown whether or not they will be included. This marks the return to the fighting genre for the venerated franchise after the action-adventure take of the series with Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. We'll have more information about Mortal Kombat Armageddon as it's released. Now, let's take a step back and really look at the era we were in during this time. Back in 2001, Sony had already started development on the PlayStation 3. Ken Kutagari, Sony's president at the time, announced a partnership with Toshiba and IBM to work on what would become the Cell microprocessor. Around that same time, a lot of development teams were shifting gears, starting to explore what the next generation of gaming would look like. By early 2005, Sony was already knee-deep in preparing launch titles for the PS3. Now, I bring this up for a reason, because while the lights on the 6th generation were starting to dim, the 7th generation was right around the corner shining bright. And when you look at what the PS3 was capable of, especially compared to the PS2, the difference was clearly night and day. Just to put it into perspective, a dual-layer PS2 disc could hold up to 8.5 gigs of data. A single-layer Blu-ray disc on a PS3 can hold 25 gigs, and a dual-layer, well, that's 50 gigs right there. Why do I bring this up? Because Mortal Kombat Armageddon, with its massive 60-carat roster and full-on conquest mode, was still developed for the PS2, not the PS3. And that decision really makes you wonder, how much more could have been done with this game if it had been developed for the next generation? The space, the processing power, the room to grow, it was all right there. But we stuck with the PS2. Now let's get back to the game development. For promotion, Ed Boon will highlight how this game would, in a sense, be the finality of Mortal Kombat's story. In an IGN interview, he was asked about it. What do you mean by Armageddon? Is it really final battle between good and evil? Does this mean this is the last Mortal Kombat as we know it? Will you explain? Armageddon does imply the end in a few ways. It is the end of Mortal Kombat on this generation of consoles. It is also the final battle between all the good and evil characters in the MK universe. We really want to close out this chapter of Mortal Kombat. Now, for this game to turn out the way the team envisioned it, especially from a technical standpoint, there were a lot of hurdles to clear. Getting every single character from the franchise history into one game, that's a huge undertaking. And it wasn't just about throwing them all in and calling it a day. They had to make sure no one was broken. Older boss characters especially went through heavy testing, pitting them against every other fighter to make sure they were balanced and fair across the board. Eventually, it was time to build some serious hype, and that came in E3 2006. Mortal Kombat Armageddon made a huge splash there. I mean, it's Mortal Kombat. It's always going to draw attention, especially when you're promising 60 plus characters in a new conquest mode. Brent Childers wrote a piece around this time saying, "The game is still unfinished and is further along than the available demo, so that secret characters remain just that, a secret. While Midway wouldn't reveal an exact percentage as to how far the game is from completion, they said they remain on pace to finish the title in October as scheduled. There was also mention of another surprise game mode or something of that nature, but when pressed on, further comments was refrained. Instead, gamers will have to wait a bit longer before more is unveiled. Keep an eye on this one. Armageddon is sure to make one final splash when it's released for Xbox and PlayStation 2.
After Egg Stedman, I'm here with John Podlasek, Paulo Garcia, and Ryan Liberman, and we're here talking about Mortal Kombat Armageddon. So guys, what's Armageddon all about?
Armageddon is the culmination of everything MK. This is by far the biggest Mortal Kombat game we've ever done. We're going to have all the fighting characters from all the fighting games in this version. As you can see, there's actually that's the system we had to devise, flipping the screen so you can actually see all the characters. How you can show all those characters on the screen. So by putting all these characters in the game, everyone's favorite is going to be in there, and probably everyone's least favorite character too. So you can pick your favorite character, and say you hate Johnny Cage, you can beat up by Johnny Cage, or you hate Striker's in there, but you love him, he'll be in there also. Another big thing we did was add air combat. And you'll see over here, you start fighting, it's reminiscent of the days of 2D fighting when you were in the air doing exchanges. By doing that, it breaks the fighting plane from not being just on the ground, but now actually in the air, pulling together combos. Another thing is the parry move. See, he was right in the middle of a combo and he pulled off a parry, which stopped the attack, and then gave you the window to try and start your own attack. Another interesting thing is the fatalities. Instead of doing a normal fatality, we do the button combo and you sit back and watch it happen. We actually chopped up all the fatalities into individual pieces, and now players will string together fatalities, kind of create their own custom fatalities. Background here is for a player, right?
Now, first question I've got.
We'll do the fatality real quick.
All right.
Watch. See the one, the two, that window with the black or with the red bar gets shorter and shorter amount of time, so you have to go faster and faster to actually go draw.
Oh, very nice.
And go all the way up to 10 is most we've seen so far. But to do a couple is fairly easy. People who aren't super great MK players can actually do a couple generally.
With a lot of fans have asked about Motaro being in the game. Now, you guys have already confirmed that Motaro's in there, and I've seen him on the select screen. So how long do you think it'll be before we actually see some footage of Motaro in the game?
Like Gamers Day is going to be late August, early September.
Okay.
We'll have it in by then. And then the other thing you'll be able to see then is our secret mode, which is, remember we had puzzle before?
Puzzle combat, yeah.
Right, and we had chess. We've got another one that's along those lines, which is diversion. It's got some comedy, and it's something totally unexpected. People are going to be really impressed with this.
Okay, the other question fans had were regarding Meat and Chameleon. Can you guys confirm if they will be in the game at this stage?
We believe so, but I can't say with 100% certainty, but I believe we have them. But we have to see timing-wise and all that kind of stuff, because they were very small characters. But hopefully we'll have them in there. We'll know more by September, for sure.
Excellent.
Make their own franchise.
Yeah,
Right now.
I saw someone do that actually on the floor already. They made their own chameleon.
Right.
And it's very, this becomes another fatality.
Finish there?
Very nice. Awesome. Now, you said 10 was the limit. Can you tell us what sort of fatality that's classed as? So you've got evil fatality, bloody fatality? Extreme fatality. I haven't seen that one pulled off yet.
That's quality. I was walking looking for Ed, so I'm actually going to do this a little bit longer. That's cool, unless you get somebody else lined up. Okay. Yeah. I was looking for Ed. It's still later. Ed must not be checked on the
One more minute.
Yeah. I'll get straight to the questions then.
Okay.
So I've only got 5 minutes here. Oh, where have I put them? Alright. The first question comes from Noob Skybot 101. Are you planning on bringing back any of the other finishing moves? What will they be?
I want some of it in there, fatalities, but most of all, still be a part of their fatality. But people will have their own unique numbers. Sub-Zero will have a crazy fatality.
Breath of Fire asks, what is the real deal with Scorpion's Spear, such as the backstory, and how does he really use it? Does he throw it from his hip or out of his hand?
You currently build it from his hip.
From his hip.
It's very true.
Amphibious asks, with every previous character playable in the game, along with all of the new features such as creative characters, custom fatalities, etc., what do you plan to do for future Mortal Kombat games to be better than this one, especially since this game is supposed to be the last one with most of the classic characters?
Ed probably answered that a little better than me, but the way I understand it, we're just going to wipe the slate clean. We're going to go reinvent the whole franchise.
With Deadly Alliance, where we just started new play mechanics, new look, new everything. So we're design team again from the ground up on the next.
That's cool. Creed 2333569. When can we expect a Mortal Kombat on PS4 or Xbox 360?
update for the PS3. If the plan right now is we're going to do next gen most likely. Have people buy the game. That's our joke. But 360 is something we're trying to have backward compatibility with this version that's coming up. So if people are interested, they can email the Microsoft.com site for. There's some kind of submission, something at Microsoft email address where people can ask to get Deception working on the 360. If we can get it going on the 360, it should work again. And that way, you got your 360, you'll still be able to play MK.
Yeah, we've already got something organised. We're going to get all the fans on board for that.
Yes.
The question I've got is, do you think we'll ever see a render like 60 Molina in Playboy?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. There was a guy from Playboy here a couple days ago, and he was asking about it. I think the thing was like October, November.
Yeah, they're going to do it again this year with same thing they do every year. But we'll see what happens. Too scary to be.
Yeah. Now that we got all these characters to pick from, maybe we'll run for one of these.
Yeah.
That's really too.
I guess.
Cooney JWC asks, will Noob Smoke be one character or will it be two separate characters? Some sort of who say two separate characters.
Some say that maybe both we make it balance.
A lot of fans are
Yeah.
I mean, I prefer them separately. It's just the way they evolve.
Right.
Kenog asks, can you and the guys change the cast render and put Motaro on there, or put a new movie of gameplay footage out?
Motaro?
Motaro.
When he's ready, we'll probably just screenshots will start getting out. It won't be for.
You think we'll see even cast render again?
I don't think. Well, that was kind of a one-time thing. I don't think we're gonna do another render like that. Yeah.
There'll be stuff in the future, videos or screenshots.
Yeah, I know we the gamers day, we always put together a bunch of screenshots, so probably needs a chance to make screenshots for this. Past at this.
Noob Sidebot 5 asks, have the MK team any involvement in the next Mortal Kombat movie?
I can talk about some of the words. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, things are actually gone. On the screen is so bad.
Oh, it's the threshold or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. They claim it's in the works, but we don't know. Can't 100% confirm or deny that. We hear it's in the works, but I don't know.
When was the last time you would have started this event?
It's more kind of an ending. I remember seeing that guy, that Larry. Yeah, I remember seeing him at E3 2 years ago. I didn't see him this year. And I heard he was building some kind of some huge facility in Louisiana that was going to do movies and stuff like that. But then he had Katrina, so I don't know what it's up to be honest. I don't know.
Right. Deadman Jr. 04 asks, I watched the coverage on a little presentation of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and what came to mind after the fatality you did? Okay.
Good work.
Any other questions you want to email and we can try and get them answered.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
With all this momentum, Mortal Kombat Armageddon will finally hit the shelves on October 9th, 2006.
Excited about it. We're going to have every Mortal Kombat character from MK1 to MK5 of the fighting games. I'm sorry, up to Deception, and we're going to have. It's probably going to be about 60 characters in total that you'll be able to pick between to fight against.
The biggest challenge in bringing back all the previous MK characters was introducing them into the 3D world. Many of the characters that are brought into Armageddon were only seen in 2D before.
Some characters we haven't seen in a long time, Stryker, Shiva, Fujin, Kai, are returning after 10-year hiatuses.
We have a new feature, Create a Fighter, where you can actually create your own fighter, give him his own moves, fighting styles, name your own fighting styles, and take them online and fight against other people, against their created fighters. We have just as extensive of a way of dressing your character, creating the costume and all that.
In Create a Fighter, you can pick out every different attribute on the character, from hairstyle to boot style to costume style. You can make the exact character you wanted to see in Mortal Kombat.
But we're like letting you get a little more personal too. You can actually create your own fighting style, create your own combos, name your fighting style, name your combos, and they actually, come up on the screen with the names that you use, and then it'll also be the other players that you play online will see those names as well too. So it's a very personalized fighting system.
Creative Fighter is set up so that if you're, a hardcore fan, you can go in and do everything from scratch and make this super character just from nothing, basically. And if you're more casual player, you can go in, pick a default. They'll have some attributes already assigned. You can just tweak a couple things and then go in the game and fight. Conquest in Mortal Kombat Armageddon is going to be different in a lot of ways. One of them is the storyline. Another one is the playability with the different types of attacks and different moves you have. And the big one is in terms of graphics.
We've had vast graphic improvements in the Conquest mode in Armageddon. It looks a million times better than previous Mortal Kombats. We spent a lot more time working on the backgrounds in Conquest. They're much more vast and detailed, as well as the characters.
The fact that we have all of the previous Mortal Kombat characters, we really don't want to have a Mortal Kombat game and not introduce anybody. So the star of the Conquest mode is going to be a character that you will be able to unlock and use in the fighting game.
Features we've added to Conquest are different types of attacks, multi-directional attacks, throws, and the environments that you can interact with in terms of breaking things and smashing things.
Probably the biggest new feature that we've added to Conquest is its fighting mechanic. You can actually fight against the NPCs, not only talk to them, find out information, unlock things, but you can actually have fights against 5, 10, 15 opponents at the same time. So we're very excited about the fact that it can actually stand alone as its own kind of action-adventure game by itself.
We have the multiple fighting styles, but we're actually taking a lot of the combat that you played in the game into the air. So all the combos that people have been doing on the floor, on the ground, you can actually do in the air now. You can do parry moves, you can do, combo breakers, all that stuff can happen in the air. So it's a lot more crazy variety stuff that happens than even in the latest game, Deception.
We've taken the jumping mechanics and the air combos from 2D fighting games and applied them to our existing 3D fighting engine to create a much more layered fighting system, a much more deeper fighting system.
This is the first Mortal Kombat with a parry move, actually. So we're actually letting the players, do a move that will kind of freeze your opponent if you time it right. Someone who's going to start a combo on you, you kind of turn the tables on them and start a combo on them. So it's a lot more of a cat and mouse game, rock, paper, scissors thing. Armageddon has the biggest departure in terms of fatalities. We actually have very interactive fatalities. You can piece together as many mini fatalities as you have the ability to fire off in a short period of time. So you can literally create your own fatalities, kind of get, give a player a little creative freedom in terms of generating the most gruesome fatalities you can think of.
So give us an example. What kind of things could you do? What's a really cool fatality you could think of?
Well, some characters, you can tear off body parts, tear the guy's heart out, rip his thigh out, rip his rib out and stuff like that. So you can do all those things, rip the guy's brain out and then tear off his head, and you can do that in any order that you want. So it's kind of like a mix and match of all these mini fatalities. I actually am, I agree that M-rated games shouldn't be sold to minors. I don't feel like we should be. It's kind of like an R-rated movie. There's an intended audience for it, and this should be just for that audience. So in terms of any sort of enforcing of not allowing M-rated games to be purchased by kids, I'm all for it.
Here's a quick spoiler alert, as I'm about to tell the story behind Armageddon. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The story in this game is told via the Conquest mode. It kicks off with Argus, the protector god of Edenia and the father to Taven and Dagon, along with his wife, Dahlia. After Dahlia foresees a coming apocalypse, what we know as Armageddon, the Elder Gods task Argus with creating a safeguard against it. In return, Argus is promised ascension to Elder God status. To carry out his plan, Argus places each of his sons into suspended animation within separate monoliths, each guarded by a dragon. Taven is watched over by Orin, a golden dragon, while Dagon is paired with Karo, a red dragon.
It is done. Taven and Dagon have been hidden. The dragons, Orin and Karo, will be at their sides.
I trust they will be safe in the caves. I only hope Shao Kahn shows no interest in Earthrealm.
It is unlikely. His attention seems focused only on Edenia. The pyramid is completed. You are certain the battle will take place here, Delia?
I am. I have sent Blaze to monitor the realms. When the time has come, he will signal the dragons and the quest will begin. Are we doing the right thing, Argus?
Your visions determined this course of action. The powerful warriors to come. The corruption of a Mortal Kombat tournament. The chain of events you foretell will lead to a conflict that will destroy us all. These combatants must be dealt with.
I am talking about Taven and Dagon. Must they be involved?
Our sons are the only ones we can trust. Furthermore, they will prove their worth before the Elder Gods. They will bring honor to Edenia.
And to you, if they survive.
We have equipped them well, and the monoliths will hone their skills. This must be done. Dagon and Taven will remain dormant. When they are revived, they will embark on a quest to save the realms from Armageddon. May the Elder Gods watch over them.
The action starts with Tavon being awakened by a signal from Blaze. He sets out across Earthrealm to recover the relics left behind for him by his parents. As he explores, he begins to realize just how much has changed during his long slumber, including the fact that Dagon was accidentally awakened long before him and is already deep into his own quest. Taven's first destination is the Botan jungle, where his father's temple lies hidden. After battling through the Black Dragon clan and taking down Cobra, Taven makes his way into the temple, only to find the gifts missing, stolen by Dagon. Before he can make sense of the situation, he's ambushed and captured by Sector's clan of cybernetic ninjas. Sector demands to know the details of the message Tavon received at the temple. When Tavon refuses, Sector offers his forces to increase the pressure, literally. Taven is tortured, but before things can go too far, a raid by the special forces gives him the opening he needs. Amid the chaos, Taven breaks free, defeats Sector, and escapes his warship.
Finally, I found a way out of the warship. I'll have to get back to the portal and return to the cave. Maybe Orin has some idea who these strange warriors are. I can't help but wonder if my brother Dagon has encountered the same foes I have.
After escaping the warship, Taven crash lands on a frozen island known as Arctica. While navigating the harsh terrain, he runs into a group of monks who ask for his help. Their abbot has been kidnapped by the Tengu clan, longtime rivals of the Lin Kuei. Taven agrees to help, and after rescuing the abbot, he's rewarded with vital information, the location of his mother's temple. Not wasting any time, Taven presses forward. But before leaving Arctica, he's confronted by the Tengu leader Wu Lei. After a tough fight, Taven defeats him and continues on his journey. Taven makes his way to his mother's temple only to find it overrun by the Lin Kuei. Battling through waves of their warriors, he eventually stumbles upon a mysterious ice coffin. When he accidentally shatters it, he awakens Frost. Mistaking Taven for Sub-Zero, Frost immediately attacks but is quickly defeated. She storms off and Taven presses deeper into the temple. Soon after, Taven runs into the real Sub-Zero. The two clash, but following the battle, Sub-Zero notices the marking on Taven's face and tells him about the sealed chamber within the temple, even one he couldn't open. Taven tries it for himself and to Sub-Zero's surprise, the doors open. Inside, Taven finds his mother's armor. Before he can leave, the temple comes under siege by an army of demonic ninjas led by Noob Saibot and Smoke. Teaming up with Sub-Zero, Taven fights them off and defeats Noob. After the fight, Sub-Zero reveals a painful truth. Noob Saibot is actually his older brother corrupted by the Netherrealm. He also warns Taven about a dangerous group called the Red Dragon Clan, hidden deep within Charred Mountain.
I should thank you. You probably saved my life.
Who is he? He doesn't seem human.
He is Noob Saibot, a warrior from the Netherrealm. He is my brother.
Your brother? Why did he try to kill you?
He was corrupted long ago, but now I have the chance to save him. The Lin Kuei owe you much, Taven. In return for your aid, I will help you find the men who have been hunting you. They are called the Red Dragon, a clan of mysterious warriors. I can't help you get inside their base, but I can reveal its location.
Where?
Shard Mountain.
It's unfortunate that Sub-Zero's brother has chosen a path of darkness. I wish I could help him remove the corruption that fills Noob Saibot's soul. But now that I know the location of the Red Dragon's stronghold, I must return to Orin. He will be able to transport me there. Maybe then I will find some answers as to why I am being pursued.
Taven returns to his cavern and demands that Orin send him to the Charred Mountains. Once there, Taven is quickly ambushed by Red Dragon agents. After taking them down, he's confronted by Fujin, who urges him not to enter the caverns. When Taven refuses to back down, Fujin stands in his way, forcing a battle. Taven defeats him and pushes forward. Inside the Red Dragon's base, Taven finally comes face to face with his brother, Dagon. The reunion is anything but pleasant. Dagon reveals that he's founded the Red Dragon clan and used Karo's DNA to create hybrid mutants. Before Taven can react, Dagon escapes, ordering Mavado to deal with him. Taven defeats Mavado and battles through hordes of mutant warriors, eventually encountering Reptile, who's attempting to force Karo to seal a portal to the Netherrealm. Taven intervenes, defeats Reptile, and frees Karo. The ancient dragon reveals the truth about the Red Dragon clan and the heartbreaking fact that Dagon murdered their parents. Enraged and seeking justice, Taven demands that Karo send him straight to the Netherrealm. Once in the Netherrealm, Taven fights his way through a gauntlet of corrupted inhabitants, including a showdown with the brutal Oni Draman. Along the way, he stumbles upon a fight between Li Mei and Shinnok. Not realizing that Shinnok is no longer aligned with the Elder Gods, Taven steps in to save him and defeats Li Mei. Shinnok tells Taven that his spire is under siege by demons. Taven presses forward and makes his way through the spire, battling Havoc, Shiva, and finally Kentaro in a brutal climb to the top. After reaching the peak, Shinnok uses his power to teleport Taven to Earthrealm. Moments later, Dagon appears in the spire, revealing that he and Shinnok were in on this together the whole time. The enemies Taven face, all illusion, just another test set up to manipulate him.
My thanks to you, Taven. You have restored to me what little semblance of authority I have left.
I am honored to be of service to an Elder God.
Former Elder God, but I do appreciate your loyalty and respect. You may rise. Your brother. Yes, he has been to the Netherrealm, but he is not here any longer. I sense that he has gone back to Earthrealm.
What? Earthrealm?
I will send you to him, but you must leave now.
Thank you, Lord Shinnok.
He is strong, quite strong, and a skilled warrior.
I told you he was a problem.
He passed all my tests, destroyed my apparitions with ease, more quickly than you did. Perhaps I am aiding the wrong brother.
What? You swore you would help me.
Fool! Your brother has been effectively delayed. His means of teleportation has been eliminated.
Forgive me, Lord Shinnok. I didn't realize. It's just that your aid is vital to my success.
Our success. There is more to this quest than you know. All things have led to this moment. The prize is not merely some gift, as your mother and father would have had you believe. It will determine the fate of many mortals, a fact I will use to my advantage.
I don't understand.
I have informed other warriors of the prize to hasten their participation. They will think, as you did, that godlike power will be bestowed upon the victor. It is a deception. They are marching to their doom. You shall be the victor, and the catalyst to my ascension.
What must I do, Lord Shinnok?
Taven arrives in Earthrealm to a grim sight. Orin is dying. Wounded by Quan Chi, Orin warns Taven that the sorcerer is headed for Outworld. With his last bit of strength, Orin used his power to send Taven after him before passing away. Taven lands in Outworld and heads straight to Shao Kahn's fortress. On his way, he cuts through Kahn's elite guards, including the Executioner, Melina, and Goro. He also frees Shujinko from the dungeons. After defeating Rico, Taven sneaks into the throne room and spies on a meeting between Shao Kahn, Onaga, Shang Tsung, and Quan Chi. They're forming an alliance, and they're headed for Edenia. But before Taven can follow, he's confronted by a corrupted Raiden. Raiden admits he's made a deal with Shao Kahn to protect Earthrealm's independence. Taven defeats him in battle and continues his pursuit into Edenia.
I cannot believe that Raiden would side with the enemy. Since this quest began, nothing has made sense. My entire life has been turned upside down. I want to abandon the quest, but if I do, Dagon will win, and he has become far too corrupt to replace Father as protector. At this moment, the forces of darkness are invading Edenia. There must be something I can do to stop them.
Back in Edenia, Tavon is ambushed by members of Scorpion's undead clan. He fends them off, only to be dragged into the Netherrealm by Scorpion himself. After a tough battle, Taven defeats Scorpion, but just as he thinks it's over, Dagon appears. Before the brothers can clash again, Blaze shows up, still in his Deadly Alliance form, and interrupts the fight. He tells them that their final battle isn't meant to happen here. With a wave of his hand, Blaze teleports both brothers back to the crater where the Armageddon battle is set to begin. Their final confrontation begins. Taven and Dagon battle fiercely. Taven eventually gains the upper hand and defeats his brother. Blaze reappears, this time in true colossal form. He explains that the brothers were meant to fight, but the situation escalated beyond control. With no other choice, Taven takes the Drake sword from Dagon and faces Blaze in a final grueling battle.
Unfortunate. It was not intended that the brothers combat each other. Dagon has fallen. Now you must fulfill your obligation.
Obligation? The quest destroyed my family. Explain to me why I should care.
Your mother, my creator, foresaw the coming Armageddon. That through mortal combat, warriors would unknowingly tap into the very forces that make reality possible. Those warriors are in the crater below, engaged in mortal combat.
All of them? But with that many fighting in one place...
This crater will be the origin of the apocalypse unless something is done to prevent it. The Elder Gods had ordered your father to orchestrate a solution. He decided to kill them all when the time came, but your mother argued to merely strip the combatants of their special abilities. For some were heroes, undeserving of death. In the end, they conceived of a contest between you and your brother. The victor would unleash one of two solutions. Like a coin toss, one side would disarm the warriors. The other would destroy them all.
Which side of the coin am I?
It is unknown even to me. Your armor is the catalyst. The fate of the combatants will be revealed when our battle is done.
So by defeating you, I could be killing them all.
They are unimportant. Whichever outcome, you will be saving the realms. But you must not let anyone else combat me.
Then allow me to win, and we'll put an end to this.
No, Taven. I must act according to my creator's design. Take your sword, walk through the archway, and finish the quest. Now face me in mortal combat!
Taven defeats Blaze, but his victory isn't what it was supposed to be. Rather than stopping Armageddon, his mother's armor does nothing. No one loses their powers. No one dies. The prophecy remains unresolved. In the aftermath, Taven accepts his new role as a protector god of Edenia. While the plan failed, he vows to use his godhood to hold off Armageddon long enough to find another way before it's truly The end.
My world has been ripped to pieces. I awoke in a foreign realm, forced to complete a quest set forth by my parents, Argus and Delia. This quest, though intended to save the realms, has destroyed my family. My brother Dagon became obsessed with winning the ultimate prize of full godhood and murdered our parents. And in his madness, he sought to destroy me as well. Orin and Karo, dragons loyal to our family for ages, were not spared from the curse this quest has wrought. Dagon enslaved Karo to serve his own ends. The sorcerer Quan Chi killed Orin, who was my guardian. Though I had nothing left, I was determined to complete the quest. I faced many combatants, fighting my way to the top of the pyramid until at last I alone defeated Blaze in mortal combat. The energy released by his death passed through me, granting me full godhood. The excess power then filtered through my armor and passed into the other combatants. Though this energy was to have one of two effects on them, death or annulment of their powers, a third, unforeseen outcome resulted. The quest did nothing to resolve the instability of the realms. But as protector of Edenia, I vow to stave off Armageddon until a solution can be found.
Mortal Kombat Armageddon was meant to be the big send-off, the game that brought it all to a close. Every character, hero, and villain from across the franchise was thrown into one final all-out war that threatens to tear the realms apart. With the roster getting more bloated and powerful, the Elder Gods, alongside Edenian royalty Argus and Dahlia, decide something needs to be done before it all collapses. That's when they come up with the prophecy and the Pyramid of Argus, setting the stage for one last battle. At its core, the game is about what happens when ambition goes unchecked. Dahlia foresees a future where good and evil clash so violently that everything is destroyed. So she and Argus try to stop that from happening. They create Blaze, a fire elemental meant to judge the combatants, and put their sons Taven and Dagon into suspended animation, waking them only when his time is right. Whoever defeats Blaze will decide the fate of everyone else, either strip all warriors of their powers or wipe them out completely. The game's setup follows this to a T. Everyone's climbing the pyramid, duking it out in a last stand free-for-all to reach Blaze. And while Taven and Dagon's rivalry is the focus, their conflict mirrors the bigger picture: family drama, legacy, and making impossible decisions under pressure. The whole thing builds towards two possible outcomes: mercy or total annihilation. As a story, Armageddon brings everything full circle while also exposing the harsh truth behind it all. Power corrupts, and chasing it only leads to more destruction. Even when characters get what they want, their endings are often dark, ruling alone or going mad or locked in more battles. The saga doesn't end with peace, it ends with a warning. The conquest mode in Armageddon acts as the heart of the game's story. Instead of just playing match after match, you take on the role of Taven, a demigod who's been asleep for centuries, waking up to fulfill a prophecy that's supposed to decide the fate of the realms. His mission is simple, on paper that is. Find his brother Dagon, defeat Blaze, and choose between saving the realms or resetting them. But this journey is more than just a checklist. Conquest mode puts you right into the Mortal Kombat universe. You travel through familiar places, run into just about every major fighter in the series, and uncover the bigger picture behind everything. The gameplay mixes combat with puzzles and exploration, borrowing from Deception and Shaolin Monks. It's a different pace, more narrative heavy and very immersive. At its core, this mode is about breaking cycles. Taven isn't just fighting his brother or chasing Blaze. He's trying to find his own path when fate has already decided what he's supposed to do. And that's where the story hits its stride. It questions what it means to be a hero and whether legacy is something you follow or something you rewrite. Conquest also works well as a bridge between story and gameplay. You unlock fighters, costumes, or hidden lore the more you explore. It keeps you engaged and gives you reasons to care about the journey. And while it's more linear than Deception's open world approach, that focus helps. Everything you do ties directly back to Taven's personal mission, and every boss fight or discovery pushes the story forward. Now, let's get into the characters of this game. Like all my videos, we start with the new characters first. And surprisingly, in this game, there were only 2 new characters added: Taven and Dagon. The brothers caught in the sibling rivalry due to their parents sits at the forefront of this game's narrative. Let's look into the game's protagonist, Taven. Now, Taven's role in the game is unique because for once, we're not dealing with the fighter out for revenge or power. He's not doing this for himself. He's doing it because he was chosen. As a son of Argus, he wakes up from his stasis in conquest mode with a job to do: stop the prophecy of Armageddon from coming true. And to do that, he has to prove himself worthy by defeating Blaze before his brother Dagon does. What makes Taven different from most Mortal Kombat characters is that he's not motivated by anger, war, or loyalty to some realm. His whole quest is about responsibility. He was raised to believe he had a role to play in saving everyone, and he takes that role seriously. His conquest journey puts him face to face with basically every major character in the series, and though it all, you see him try to make sense of this world that's fueled by betrayal, rage, and power struggles. He's not just a fighter, he's a witness to how far gone everything has become. And it's good when he completes the task, slays Blaze, fulfills a prophecy, and becomes a god, but it falls apart. The power meant to strip the warriors from their abilities ends up amplifying them instead. Thanks to Blaze's corruption, the plan backfires, the chaos gets worse, and the entire mission that Talon was sent on turns out to be a failure. Not because he was weak or selfish, but because the whole system was flawed from the jump. Taven's story is tragic in the best kind of way. He did everything right, made hard choices, and still couldn't stop the storm. It's a story about how even the most noble efforts can go sideways when the world around you is already broken. Taven's story is a reminder that being chosen doesn't guarantee success, and sometimes even heroes get used. His arc gives Armageddon a sense of gravity and finality, and it hits even harder knowing that his sacrifice wasn't good enough to stop what was coming.
Taven finally completed the quest by slaying Blaze with the sword I left for him in my temple. As intended, the godlike energy passed through him, transforming him into a full god. The surge of power then passed through the armor given to him by his mother, and was dispersed into every combatant within the crater. The result was intended to strip them of their special powers, but Blaze had been corrupted long ago by the Dragon King's holy men. Instead of nullifying the combatants' power, it made them stronger than before. The quest was a failure. May the Elder Gods forgive me.
Now let's get into Dagon, Taven's younger brother, and honestly, one of the most underrated villains in the Mortal Kombat universe. If Taven is the hero who tried to save everyone, Dagon is the complete opposite. He was supposed to wake up at the same time as Taven to go on the same journey, but thanks to some interference from Shinnok, Dagon wakes up early and everything starts going downhill from there. Dagon's early awakening messes him up bad. He becomes twisted, paranoid, and full of resentment. He believes his parents are dead, and that sense of betrayal eats him alive. Instead of protecting the realms, he kills his parents, starts the Red Dragon Clan, and becomes obsessed with beating his brother at all costs. He's not just a bad guy, he's a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when destiny is tampered with and someone's pride and impatience take control. In his Armageddon ending, Dagon takes the ultimate shortcut. He lets Taven do all the hard work, then stabs Blaze in the back and tries to take the win for himself. But that win is short-lived. He learns his parents are still alive and the whole thing was a test. He failed hard, and he is punished for it, rightfully so. While Taven's ending is tragic, Dagon's is pure downfall. Dagon's character works as the perfect foil to Taven. Where Taven chooses duty, Dagon chooses ambition. Where Taven questions the system, Dagon becomes a product of his corruption. And in the grand scheme of Mortal Kombat, his story shows how dangerous it is to let bitterness and ego guide your path. Dagon had the same chance as Tavon did, but instead of rising to the occasion, he let darkness take over. His legacy isn't about power. It's about what it costs when you throw everything away for it.
Wounded, Dagon followed Taven to the pyramid. As Taven battled Blaze, Dagon stabbed the fire elemental from behind with a sword I had left him. Thus through treachery did Dagon complete the quest. But before he could savor his victory, the pyramid shook and a recess opened, revealing the parents he had murdered, Delia and myself. We were in fact still alive, our deaths feigned in an elaborate test created to reveal the true nature of our sons. It is clear that Taven possesses the virtue required to defend Edenia. He will take my place as defender. Dagon, however, will be punished severely for the suffering he has caused.
Now that we covered Taven and Dagon, let's get into the characters that came back. Let's start with Ashura. By the time Armageddon rolls around, Ashura's journey has evolved far beyond her original quest for personal redemption. What began as a fight to purge her demonic nature becomes something much greater, a mission to spread peace and purification across the realms. Her ending is particularly powerful. After being purified by Blaze's energy, Ashura transforms into a radiant being of divine light. Her very presence now soothes and pacifies evil, not just within herself, but in others too. It's a literal and symbolic culmination of her arc. She no longer seeks salvation for herself alone. Now she has the power to redeem even those as far gone as her former nemesis, Quan Chi. The final act, purifying Quan Chi, brings her full circle. It's closure on a personal level, but also a thematic statement about the potential for redemption, even for the most corrupt. Ashura doesn't just achieve her goal, she transcends it, becoming a force for good in a world drowning in chaos. In a game built around apocalyptic conflict and brutal power grabs, her ending stands out. It's a rare note of light and forgiveness, hope, in a franchise so often defined by violence and vengeance. Ashura's story becomes one of the few truly uplifting conclusions in Armageddon.
The power of Blaze purified Ashura completely. She was transformed into a being of divine light. Her radiance soothed even the darkest of souls. With new purpose, she traversed the realms in search of evil, pacifying the wicked. Her mission came full circle when at last she purified the sorcerer who would have her slain, Quan Chi.
Now let's talk about Baraka. For most of the Mortal Kombat series, Baraka has been the muscle, brutal, loyal, and expandable, a savage enforcer for tyrants like Shao Kahn, Shinnok, and Onaga. He spent years being used and discarded, always fighting for others, never truly for himself. But Armageddon flips the script. In his ending, Baraka finally breaks free of the chains that have bound him. After absorbing Blaze's power, he refuses to serve anyone ever again. He summons his former masters, Shao Kahn and Onaga, and gives them an ultimatum: submit or die. When they refuse, he doesn't hesitate. His blades grow to monstrous lengths, piercing their hearts before he casts their bodies from the pyramids like trash. It's a brutal symbolic moment. Baraka is done being a pawn. He's the one calling the shots now. And he wastes no time establishing his reign. He turns to Mileena and offers her a place at his side as queen. It's not just about power, it's about legacy. Baraka is no longer the underlying. He's the conqueror, the warlord, the ruler. His ending captures a full character arc, from expandable foot soldier to self-made overlord. It's a violent realization of his long-standing ambition for respect and control. And in the context of a game meant to cap off the saga, it gives Baraka a definitive, powerful conclusion, not as a monster under someone's boot, but as a ruler standing on his own.
With the power of Blaze within him, Baraka would never again serve another. Summoning Shao Kahn and Onaga before him atop the pyramid, he gave them a choice: Submit to Lord Baraka or die. They responded by attacking the Tarkatan. In a flash, Baraka's blades grew to twice their normal length and pierced his former masters through their hearts. Flinging their bodies down the side of the pyramid, Baraka turned his attention to a more important matter. Who would be his queen? He gave Melina a choice. She chose wisely.
Now we come to Blaze, arguably the most evolved and misunderstood character in the entire Mortal Kombat series. Originally created to monitor the realms and act as a safeguard against threats like the Dragon King Onaga, Blaze was meant to be a force of balance, but Armageddon recontextualizes that role with a tragic twist. Somewhere along his millennia-long vigil, Onaga followers enslaved him using dark magic, corrupting his purpose and binding him to guard the Dragon Egg, a symbol of Onaga's prophesied return. This wasn't just a detour in his mission, it was a complete hijacking of his identity. Blaze, once a neutral guardian, becomes a ticking time bomb. His existence twisted from protector to destroyer. His fiery golden-like form reflects his duality, a being that once symbolized purification, now radiating chaos. Unlike most characters in the game, Blaze doesn't chase power or redemption. Instead, he's caught in the cycle of manipulation, a cosmic pawn with no agency. His ending is perhaps the darkest of them all. After defeating every challenger on the pyramid, Blaze unleashes a cataclysmic wave of energy that begins in Edenia and ripples out, destroying every realm. It's the prophecy of Dahlia come true, but not in the way it was intended. This isn't a victory. It's the tragic result of corrupted programming taken to its final irreversible conclusion. Blaze doesn't win. He fulfills a destiny that was never his to begin with, and in doing so, he becomes a symbol of futility, a being built to preserve balance, whose existence ends up tipping the scales towards annihilation.
During his ages-long quest to monitor the realms, Blaze had been enslaved by Onaga's holy men and forced to guard the great Dragon Egg. The spell used to control him corrupted his original design. When his final objective atop the pyramid came to pass, he was unstoppable and defeated all who challenged him. As foreseen by the sorceress Delia, Armageddon began in the Edenian crater and spread throughout the realms, shattering reality until there was nothing.
Next up is Bo' Rai Cho, the drunken master with far more depth than his comic relief moments suggest. Throughout the series, Bo' Rai Cho has been a mentor figure. He trained legends like Liu Kang and Kung Lao, choosing guidance over glory, wisdom over warfare. But in Armageddon, his story reaches the most meaningful point. His ending sees him defeat Blaze and stand before the gods, not with pride, but with hesitation. Even in victory, Bo' Rai Cho questions his own worth, unsure if he belongs among the gods, and ironically, that humility so rare in the Mortal Kombat universe that earns him divinity. The Elder Gods elevate him, naming him the protector of Outworld. This isn't a reward for conquest, it's a recognition of a life spent uplifting others. While many characters are fueled by revenge, power, or personal salvation, Bo' Rai Cho's motivation has always been service. His ascension to godhood is a quiet but powerful statement. In a world of violence and ego, compassion and humility still matter. His ending doesn't just wrap up his arc, it redeems the very idea of goodness in Mortal Kombat, and that makes it one of the most quietly powerful conclusions in Armageddon.
Upon defeating Blaze, Bo' Rai Cho was transported to the heavens. He stood before me, a humble warrior unsure of his fate in the presence of a god. I had looked into his soul and found that he was a good man and a powerful warrior. Outworld needed a protector, a task for which Bo' Rai Cho had more than proven himself worthy. At my request, the Elder Gods breathed their life force into him, transforming the once humble warrior into a god. Bo' Rai Cho had become protector of Outworld.
Now, let's talk about Chameleon, a character who hadn't made a real appearance since Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And by the way, this is Chameleon with a C for this one. In Armageddon, Chameleon goes from obscurity to center stage. As the final battle rages, he uses his camouflage to slip past the chaos, climb the pyramid unnoticed, and defeat Blaze. The result? Immortality, and for the first time, recognition as the true champion of Mortal Kombat. It's a clever twist. Chameleon's long absence wasn't just a writing gap. It becomes part of the narrative. His years in hiding were a strategy, a waiting game while others destroyed themselves chasing power. And when the moment finally comes, he's the one left standing. His ending flips the usual Mortal Kombat formula. Instead of brute force or high-profile vendettas, Chameleon succeeds through patience, stealth, and adaptability. It's a rare payoff for a character built around mystery and gives him a defining moment in what was meant to be the saga's finale. For a character who always operated in the background, this ending is a statement. Chameleon doesn't just survive, he wins. And in doing so, he proves that sometimes the one who watches from the shadows is the most dangerous of all.
As the battle raged, Chameleon camouflaged himself and raced to the top of the pyramid unseen. There he defeated Blaze and the ethereal power overtook him. Immortality was now his. Though he had been ever-present throughout the crises of the realms, from Liu Kang's first victory to the return of the Dragon King, he had remained hidden from sight, waiting for his moment to come. That moment had arrived. From this day forth, the realms will know Chameleon as the true champion of Mortal Kombat.
Now let's talk Cyrax, the tragic weapon of the Lin Kuei. Originally a loyal assassin, Cyrax was forced into the clan's cybernetic initiative and stripped away of his humanity and rebuilt as a machine. But what makes Cyrax stand out is his internal conflict. Over time, he begins to reject his programming, searching for a way to reclaim his soul and break free from the grip of the Lin Kuei. By the time you reach Armageddon, he's no longer just a cybernetic soldier. He's a man chasing redemption. His ending brings that journey full circle. After defeating Blaze, Cyrax is engulfed in elemental energy that tears away his cybernetics and restores his human form. It's not just a physical transformation, it's a spiritual rebirth. Free from the Lin Kuei's control, Cyrax chooses to stand behind Sub-Zero, someone who has struggled with the clan's legacy. Their next move? A full-on rebellion. Together, they take the fight to their former comrades, Smoke and Sector, launching a war between man and machine. Their victory paves the way to reprogram and possibly restore the rest of the cyborgs. For Cyrax, this isn't just closure, it's hope. Hope that was stolen and can be reclaimed now, not just for him, but for everyone caught in the Cyber Initiative's grip.
When he defeated Blaze, elemental powers surged through Cyrax and shattered his cybernetics. He was human once again. He allied with Sub-Zero, and with him confronted the cyborgs Smoke and Sector. In an epic battle of men versus machines, Cyrax and Sub-Zero defeated their longtime foes. The cyborgs will be reprogrammed to serve the Lin Kuei once more, until they too can be reverted to their human forms.
Next up is Daru, a character who mostly flew under the radar, but Armageddon gives him a surprising spotlight. Once a disgraced lawman turned mercenary, Daryu's story takes a huge turn when he defeats Blaze and is rewarded with a golden suit of armor, a symbol of strength, legitimacy, and transformation. But his story doesn't end there. When Shao Kahn attacks in a fit of rage, Daryu holds his ground, and in a stunning moment he defeats the Emperor. That victory isn't just personal, it marks a new chapter for Outworld. Under Daryu's rule, the realm is restored to its former glory, not as a battlefield ruled by tyranny, but as a majestic unified kingdom. What makes this ending powerful is how far Daryu's come. For a man fueled by vengeance to a ruler respected by Denia and Earthrealm, his journey completes a full arc. Chaos to order, exile to emperor. In a game built around finality, Darius' ending gives us something rare: peace, unity, and the redemption of a forgotten warrior.
The fire of blaze enveloped Dairu and formed around him a golden suit of armor. Enraged, Shao Kahn attacked, but the armor scorched his body with every blow. Dairu defeated the Emperor and claimed Outworld for himself. Under his rule, Outworld once again became the majestic realm it had been in ages past. Convinced of his good nature, Edenia and Earthrealm forged an alliance with Dairu that would ensure peace and stability forever.
Darius is one of those characters that lives in the gray. Coming from Sidu, the Order Realm, he's the face of rebellion, opposing a regime obsessed with law and control. Throughout the series, Darius has always been willing to cross lines, using manipulation, deception, and even violence to shake the system. He's a perfect contrast to Hotaru, the enforcer of Sato's laws, a walking clash between revolution and order. In Armageddon, Darius goes all in. After defeating Blaze, he somehow gets his hands on divine relics meant only for Argus' sons Taven and Dagon. With these powerful artifacts, he finally topples Hotaru and takes control of Sato. It's the ultimate victory for his cause, a realm reborn under his rule, not one dictated by rigid laws. But it's not all a celebration, because those artifacts, they were never his to take. Argus sends Taven and Dagon on a new quest to retrieve what was stolen, making it clear Darius's win isn't secure. It's bold, it's clever, but it's also unstable. That's the tragedy of Darius. His revolution may succeed in a moment, but the future, still uncertain. His story reminds us that power taken without destiny is always under threat.
Upon defeating Blaze, the pyramid shrank and transformed into a golden ring. The ring granted Darius access to my vault, wherein lay the treasure rightfully due my sons Taven and Dagon. The powerful artifacts allowed Darius to finally defeat Hotaru and conquer the realm of order. But the items were meant only for my lineage to wield. I have now sent Taven and Dagon on yet another quest. They must work together to defeat Darius and retrieve what he has stolen.
Draman remains true to his origins as a brutal rage-fueled Oni born from the torment of the Netherrealm. Once a human condemned to eternal suffering, he was transformed into a grotesque demon. His infamous mask serving as both the source of power and restraint, suppressing his uncontrollable fury to maintain a sliver of rationality. Throughout the series, Draman often acts as an enforcer, usually seen alongside his fellow Oni Moloch, and serving dark masters like Quan Chi. In Armageddon, his arc takes a darker, more tragic turn. The power of Blaze awakens a dormant energy within his mask, not liberating him, but possessing him. This surge causes him to grow to 3 times his size, driving him into an unstoppable frenzy. Stripped away of what little self-control he had left, Draman turns on Moloch in a climactic battle between former allies. In slaying his last companion, Draman severs his final tie to loyalty and reason, fully succumbing to a monstrous existence ruled by bloodlust and rage. It's a fittingly grim end for a character whose soul was so long lost to the fires of the Netherrealm.
The energy of Blaze unlocked the life force residing within Draman's mask. Unable to remove it, Draman became possessed by it and grew to 3 times his original size. The power of the mask also fueled the rage within him. Unable to contain his fury, Draman turned on his former ally, Moloch, in an epic battle of demons. Moloch was defeated, but Draman's bloodlust has only just begun.
Ermac has always been one of the franchise's most enigmatic characters. a fusion of souls bound by sorcery created to serve as Shao Kahn's obedient warrior. From the beginning, he was not one, but many, a swirling collective of fallen warriors, each contributing to a single body and voice. Over time, however, Ermac developed self-awareness, evolving from a hollow construct into a being capable of thought, conflict, and even morality. In Armageddon, Ermac's journey reaches a profound conclusion. Upon defeating Blaze, the sheer energy splinters his unified form, separating him into the countless individual souls that once composed him. These souls are granted new bodies, but remain physically linked, each now autonomous yet still bound by a shared consciousness. This transformation is both literal and symbolic. For years, Ermac grappled with the inner conflict of competing voices and memories. Now each of those voices is given a form, but the unity they once forged remains. As an army with one mind, Ermac becomes the ultimate embodiment of cooperation and purpose, a liberated collective no longer trapped with one shell. It's a resolution that honors both his origins and his evolution.
The energy of Blaze shattered Ermac, separating him into the many warriors who comprised his being. Now each with his own physical form, the Ermacs are linked psychically and act according to their collective consciousness. No longer a mere fusion of warrior souls, Ermac has become an army.
Frost began her journey as Sub-Zero's most promising apprentice, gifted with powerful cryomancer abilities. But plagued by arrogance and ambition, her story has always been driven by one goal: to surpass her mentor, even if it meant betraying him. From her earliest appearances, she's been impulsive, reckless, and obsessed with claiming the Dragon Medallion. In Armageddon, Frost finally achieves her long-sought victory. After defeating Blaze, she takes the Dragon Medallion from Sub-Zero and unlocks ice powers that far exceed his own. But surpassing him isn't enough. Frost journeys to Outworld, where she uncovers the tomb of her Chiromancer ancestors. In a chilling act of dominance, she fuses their souls into the bodies of current Lin Kuei members, creating an army of Chiromancers loyal only to her. With this force, she wages war across the realms, turning each into a frozen wasteland. Her transformation from rebellious student to tyrannical conqueror is complete. Rather than redemption or balance, Frost chooses absolute power. Her legacy, marked by isolation, subjugation, and devastation. It's a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition, where victory comes at the cost of humanity.
Her strength increased. Frost once again took the Dragon Medallion from Sub-Zero and enhanced her freezing power far beyond her former mentors. Traveling to Outworld, she located the tomb of her ancestors, the Cryomancers, and planted their souls in the bodies of the current Lin Kuei. Her army of Cryomancers conquered the realms, leaving each of them a frozen wasteland.
Fujin's arc at Armageddon marks the fulfillment of his journey from a supportive deity to a symbol of hope and rebirth. Introduced as the god of wind in mythologies and protector of Earthrealm in Mortal Kombat 4, Fujin often stood in Raiden's shadow, wise, steadfast, and optimistic, but rarely central to the conflict. Defined by his belief in the potential for good, Fujin guided heroes and fought to preserve peace across the realms. After defeating Blaze, Fujin ascends to godhood in the truest sense. The power he inherits transforms him into a living storm of justice, and he uses this might not for conquest, but to create a new realm, forged from the ashes of worlds devastated by Shao Kahn's tyranny. It's an act of both restoration and leadership, a home for the forces of light and a beacon for survivors of chaos. This new realm, with Kung Lao as its general, signals a critical shift. Fujin is no longer a background guardian. He becomes the architect of resistance, the leader of a righteous uprising against darkness. His evolution from Raiden's ally to a sovereign of light embodies the hope that even in ruin, something new and better can be born.
As the energy of Blaze coursed through Fujin, it transformed the Wind God into a storm of justice. His power increased exponentially. He created a new realm from the shattered remnants of worlds that had fallen victim to Shao Kahn's aggression. From there, the forces of light will stage their operations, with Kung Lao as Fujin's commanding general.
Goro's story is the ultimate tale of vindication for himself and the Shokan race. First introduced as a terrifying champion of Mortal Kombat, Goro served Outworld's emperors with unmatched strength and loyalty. Yet his service was met with manipulation and marginalization. His people often treated as expendable pawns in the ambitions of sorcerers and tyrants. In Armageddon, Goro finally breaks that cycle. After defeating Blaze, he ascends to godhood, eclipsing the very overlords who once commanded him. This divine empowerment brings not just personal triumph, but a reckoning. When the forces of darkness, Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Shao Kahn, and Onaga, seek to strip him of his newfound power, Goro defies them with ferocity. Rallying an army of Shokan warriors, he crushes his former masters and claims Outworld as his own. It's a seismic movement. No longer a servant, Goro becomes a ruler. No longer dismissed, the Shokan now reign. Their ancient war cry signals not just revenge, but resurgence. Goro's ending is more than just a victory. It's a revolution and the birth of a new Outworld led by those once cast aside.
Having defeated Blaze, Goro had attained the power of a god. But to the forces of darkness, this power was not meant for a mere Shokan to wield. Shang Tsung, Quan Chi, Shao Kahn, and Onaga all had anticipated victory, only to have it stolen from them. The four surrounded Goro in a vain attempt to wrest the power from him. Goro laughed, raised his arms, and let forth an ancient Shokan battle cry. From out of nowhere, an army of Shokan warriors stormed the pyramid and slaughtered the four attackers. The Shokan race will rule Outworld forever.
Havoc's conclusion is chaos incarnate. As the cleric of chaos from the volatile chaos realm, Havoc has always stood apart, unconcerned with power or justice, seeking only to unravel the fabric of order. His actions have never been about domination or revenge, but disruption for his own sake. In Armageddon, Havoc realizes he is the ultimate weapon. With Blaze defeated and the godlike power absorbed, he becomes the embodiment of chaos. His very presence warps reality, twisting the realms into ever-changing, grotesque parodies of what once was. Laws of physics, identity, and time collapse. In this new existence, structure and reason are obliterated, replaced by endless, unrelenting flux. Where others find redemption or forge new legacies, Havoc achieves annihilation, not of life, but of meaning. No heroes, no villains, no future, just chaos, eternally. His victory isn't a chapter, it's the last page of the book torn out and set ablaze.
Infused with the power of Blaze, the cleric of chaos, Havoc, became chaos incarnate. His aura corrupted the stability of the realms, causing them to rip, tear, and reshape in grotesque ways. Soon, nothing remained that resembled the former universe. Havoc's dream had been realized. Ultimate chaos had been achieved.
Hotaru embodies the unwavering devotion to law, structure, and absolute order. To him, conformity is virtue, and deviation is a threat to be extinguished. Throughout the series, this rigid worldview has often placed him in a morally gray territory, where justice becomes absolute and peace is enforced through suppression. In Armageddon, Hotaru's arc reaches its most extreme conclusion. After defeating Blaze, he transcends mortal form, becoming a being of pure order. His presence alone compels submission or transformation. His ascension is not merely a gain in power, but the full realization of his ideology, a universe stripped of chaos where dissent and individuality are replaced by harmony and control. The most symbolic moment arrives in his confrontation with Havik. Rather than destroy his enemy, Hotaru forcibly transforms the Cleric of Chaos into his second in command. This act isn't just victory, it's conversion. Havik, once the embodiment of disorder, now a servant of the very structure he sought to destroy. Hotaru's ending is both a triumph and a warning, illustrating how the pursuit of total order can become its own form of tyranny.
The power of Blaze transformed Hotaru into a being of pure order. All would bow before him or be transformed by his gaze. Yet there was one whom Hotaru would see pay for his crimes against conformity. The Cleric of Chaos, Havik. The light of Hotaru poured into Havik's mind and transformed him into an agent of order. Hotaru's second in command.
Suhao's conclusion is grimly fitting for one of Mortal Kombat's most disliked and underdeveloped villains. Introduced as a Red Dragon enforcer and double agent, his story has always revolved around betrayal and obedience rather than ambition or depth. Enhanced with a cybernetic heart granting immense power, Suhao remained a blunt instrument, useful but never truly significant. In Armageddon, his arc ends not in glory, but in utter futility. He doesn't defeat Blaze. Instead, he's caught in the shockwave of Blaze's destruction and dies instantly. His death is almost incidental, a final reminder of his status as a pawn in a game far bigger than him. Reborn in the Netherrealm, he becomes a demon of emptiness and leads the Oni horde to overthrow Shinnok. But it's a hollow victory, power gained not through character growth but through sheer vacancy. As ruler of a realm, Suhao becomes a symbol of what he always was, void of purpose, ruling over ruin. His ending is not a redemption, but a reflection of his own narrative irrelevance.
Killed in the shockwave of Blaze's violent death, Suhao's corrupt soul descended into the Netherrealm. As his soul began to regain a physical body, Suhao became his true self, a demon of emptiness and desolation. Leading an Oni horde, he defeated Shinnok and his minions. He now sits upon the throne of the Netherrealm.
Jade's story is a culmination of her transformation from loyal assassin to selfless hero. Originally the enforcer for Shao Kahn and loyal friend to Katana, her arc has been one of conscience over command, choosing to side with Edenia and resist tyranny. Jade evolves into a fierce defender of justice, defined by loyalty, clarity, and conviction. In Armageddon, this evolution reaches its apex. After absorbing Blaze's power, Jade is asked to act on her deepest desire. Channeling divine energy, she unleashes a sonic cry that tears open the pyramid, creating a vortex that seals away the forces of darkness for eternity. This act doesn't just defeat evil, it protects the realms and solidifies her as a savior. The pyramid becomes a monument, not only to her sacrifice, but to her legacy. Once a supporting player in other stories, Jade now stands as a central figure whose courage reshapes destiny. Her ending is the ultimate affirmation of her growth and a warrior who chose righteousness over power, and in doing so, earned both.
Defeated, Blaze transferred godlike power to Jade and instructed her to make true that which she most desired. As if controlled by some divine force, she let out a tremendous shriek that split open the pyramid. As she inhaled, the forces of darkness were sucked inside the ancient structure. It then resealed itself, trapping them there for eternity. Jade was celebrated as a hero, and the pyramid stood as a reminder to those who would threaten Edenia.
Now let's turn our attention to Jarek. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 4 as a member of the Black Dragon clan, Jarek has always been a ruthless, self-serving fighter, lacking the nuance or conflicted morality of other anti-heroes in the series. In his Armageddon ending, this brutality is no longer restrained. It becomes absolute. Empowered by Blaze, Jarek transforms into an avatar of death, driven not by ambition or ideology, but the pure ecstasy of annihilation. Sealing off the crater, he unleashes a blood-soaked rampage, executing fatality after fatality on every combatant present. Sub-Zero's spine, Kano's still beating heart, and the dismembered remains of his rivals litter the battlefield in a grotesque display of carnage. Jarek, laughing maniacally, stands alone, not as a ruler or savior, but as the last thing standing in a world torn apart by his own hands. His ending isn't about power or conquest. It's the unfiltered realization of his violent nature. With no higher purpose or redemption in sight, Jarek becomes something mythic, the embodiment of chaos. Merciless and unstoppable, his legacy is not one of leadership or legacy, but of pure, unrelenting death.
Blaze drew chi from all the combatants and funneled it into Jarek. He suddenly felt as if death itself were guiding his actions. Laughing maniacally, he sealed off the crater and unleashed a storm of fatalities upon his fellow warriors. None could escape the maelstrom of deadly energy. When at last the tempest abated, Sub-Zero's spine lay quivering next to Kano's still beating heart. An armless Jax knelt beside the two halves of Kung Lao's body. Jarek had finished them all.
Jax's story takes a dark and unexpected turn at Armageddon, challenging everything the character has ever represented. Long seen as a pillar of strength, integrity, and leadership within Earthrealm Special Forces, Jax is defined by his unwavering commitment to justice and the balance he maintained between a man and machine. But that balance shatters when he defeats Blaze. The surge of power causes his cybernetics to expand, overtaking his body and turning him into a full-fledged cyborg. With this transformation comes a harrowing discovery. A hidden neural chip implanted by Sector that had been influencing his actions for years. Enraged by this violation of his autonomy, Jax hunts down Sector, destroys him, and seizes control of his clan. Now their leader, Jax finds himself on uncertain ground, estranged from the Special Forces and perhaps of his own humility. The ending leaves us with a character caught between identities. Once a symbol of resilience and moral clarity, now something colder, harder, and less certain. Jax's arc raises profound questions about identity, control, and the cost of technological dependence. His new power gives him dominance, but also detachment. He has taken control of his destiny, or has he simply traded one form of programming for another?
When Jax absorbed the power of Blaze, the cybernetics in his arms grew and permeated his entire body. He was transformed into a full cyborg. He became aware of a controlling neural chip that had been implanted in his brain by Sector. Enraged, Jax defeated Sector and claimed leadership of the cyborg ninja clan, the Dakunin. It is unknown if he will ever return to the Special Forces.
Johnny Cage's journey is one of the most remarkable evolutions in the Mortal Kombat universe, a transformation from arrogant showman to enlightened warrior. Introduced as a brash Hollywood star seeking to prove his martial arts credentials and boost his fame, Johnny was once seen as comic relief, his motivation shallow and self-centered. But over time, flashes of courage, loyalty, and genuine heroism began to emerge, especially through his sacrifices for Earthrealm and his relationship with Sonya Blade and their allies. In his Armageddon ending, this evolution reaches its culmination. After defeating Blaze, Johnny gains divine power, but rather than indulge in celebrity or conquest, he chooses introspection, seeking guidance from Shaolin monks. Johnny renounces his materialism and embraces a spiritual path, dedicating himself to enlightenment and inner peace. This is not a power fantasy, it's a redemption story. Johnny's ending is powerful because it reframes what strength truly means. No longer defined by flash or ego, he becomes a symbol of self-awareness, humility, and personal growth. He doesn't just become more powerful, he becomes better. In a world where violence often defines victory, Johnny Cage shows that the greatest triumph can be the courage to change.
Johnny Cage defeated Blaze, and the power of the gods rushed through him. He gained superior strength and dexterity, but more important, a new insight into his existence. With the help of Shaolin masters, he renounced his superficial former life and became enlightened.
Cabal's character arc is a compelling exploration of identity, loyalty, and vengeance. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 3 as a reformed Black Dragon member turned vigilante, his story has always been shaped by trauma and reinvention. Over the years, Cabal has oscillated between roles, at times a resistance hero, other times a ruthless Black Dragon enforcer, constantly torn between his quest for justice and the darker impulses bred of his past. In his Armageddon ending, Cabal's inner conflict reaches its most unforgiving resolution. Empowered by Blaze, his hook swords ignite into fiery blades, weaponizing his thrust for revenge. The focus of his wrath becomes Mavado, the leader of the rival Red Dragon clan, an enemy who represents not just a personal vendetta, but a clashing ideology. Their final confrontation atop the pyramid is more than a duel. It's a symbolic war between two criminal legacies. Mavado, unable to face defeat, ends his own life. Cabal, in a grisly display of triumph, raises Mavado's severed head, declaring the Black Dragon's supremacy. Rather than seek redemption or forge a new identity, Cabal doubles down on his roots. His ending represents a full circle return to the violent anarchic creed of the Black Dragon. His transformation into a figure of vengeance rather than justice suggests that, despite these moments of heroism, Cabal is ultimately a product of the chaos he once tried to escape.
The heat of Blaze wrapped itself around Cabal's hook swords and transformed them into fiery blades of vengeance. Crossing them above his head, Cabal challenged Mavado atop the pyramid, seeking to end their rivalry once and for all. In an epic hook-sword battle, Mavado could not withstand the fury of Cabal and his enhanced weapons. Never one to admit defeat, Mavado took his own life by performing Harakiri. Standing atop the pyramid, Cabal raised Mavado's severed head high so all would know of the Black Dragon clan's superiority.
Kai's journey is one of spiritual discovery, inner peace, and ultimately cosmic revelation. Introduced in Mortal Kombat 4 as a disciplined and principled monk trained alongside Liu Kang, Kai has consistently stood apart from his introspective nature and philosophical mindset. Unlike many warriors driven by bloodlust or revenge, Kai seeks understanding of himself, the realms, and a greater cosmic balance. In his Armageddon ending, Kai's pursuit of truth reaches its ultimate expression. Upon defeating Blaze, he becomes psychically linked to the One Being, the primordial force from which all realms were born. This connection grants him cosmic awareness, allowing him to witness the tapestry of reality, past, present, and the very essence of dreams that shape existence. In a meditative trance, Kai's spirit travels across realms, observing tyrants rise and fall, cycles of violence repeat, and pivotal events unfold in a continuous spiral. What defines Kai's ending is not victory nor transformation, but revelation. Where he gazes into the future, he sees nothing, no destiny, no continuation, just a vast void. It's a sovereign moment of existential finality, especially within the context of Armageddon as the intended conclusion of the Mortal Kombat saga. For Kai, it's a moment of transcendence and melancholy, a realization that the story is truly over. No more realms to save, no more battles to fight, only silence.
The power of Blaze opened Kai's mind, and he became psychically linked to the One Being. He could see the One Being's dreams, from which all of reality is formed. In deep meditation, Kai allowed his mind to wander the realms in search of knowledge. He witnessed the rise of Shao Kahn and his eventual demise at the hand of Liu Kang, the return of the Dragon King, and the final battle at the pyramid. But when Kai looked to the future, he saw nothing.
Kano's ending is a brutal, poetic capstone to his legacy as one of Mortal Kombat's most persistent and admirable antagonists. Since his debut in the original Mortal Kombat, Kano has embodied the archetype of the unscrupulous mercenary, treacherous, cunning, and utterly self-serving. As leader of the Black Dragon, he thrived on chaos, manipulation, and brute force, consistently operating on the fringes of morality with no allegiance but to himself. In Armageddon, Kano's villainous journey takes a monstrous turn. Captured by the Red Dragon clan and used as a test subject for their experiments in creating a human-dragon hybrid, Kano once again finds himself on the brink of annihilation. But true to his survivalist nature, he escapes before the transformation is complete. The divine power of Blaze, however, finishes what the Red Dragon has begun, mutating Kano into a terrifying Black Dragon humanoid. This transformation is more than just physical, it's symbolic. Kano has always acted like a beast, now he is one. The mutation reflects the full embodiment of his brutality and cunningness. It's a dark reward for a life built on ruthlessness and opportunism. Even in the victimhood, Kano manages to twist fate to his benefit. From test subject to apex predator, his evolution cements him, not just as a criminal, but as the Black Dragon incarnate.
For months, the Red Dragon had kept Kano hidden in their mountain stronghold, an unwilling test subject for a new process designed to transform humans into dragons. Kano escaped, however, before they could finish. Infused with godlike energy from Blaze, the process was rejuvenated. Kano was transformed into a Black Dragon human hybrid.
Kenshi's journey is a pointed reflection on power, sacrifice, and the unintended consequences of achieving one's deepest desires. Introduced as a noble swordsman and telekinetic warrior, Kenshi has always been defined by tragedy, resilience, and a quiet sense of justice. Throughout the series, he remains a stoic figure, honorable, focused, and driven by a need for redemption. In his Armageddon ending, Kenshi's long pursuit of balance and retribution takes a bittersweet turn. The power of Blaze burns away the curse that caused his blindness, restoring his sight and enhancing his remaining senses to supernatural levels. At first, this seems like the reward he's long deserved, justice for his suffering and restoration of what was taken from him. But the reality is far more painful. The overwhelming flood of sensory input proves unbearable. His heightened sight and hearing drown him out in a world too vivid and loud to endure. Unable to cope, Kenshi retreats to a remote mountain cave, isolating himself in darkness and silence once more. This ending is deeply symbolic. What once seemed like a curse, his blindness had become a source of clarity and balance. Its removal, rather than liberating him, strips away that hard-won peace, leaving him more isolated than ever. Kenshi's fate speaks to desire and fulfillment, that true strength may not lie in recovering what was lost, but in learning to live with one's scars. His conclusion is neither triumphant nor tragic. It's a meditative reflection on the cost of yearning and the elusive nature of peace.
The fire of Blaze burned away the curse responsible for Kenshi's blindness. Not only was his sight restored, but he gained increased sensitivity in his other senses as well. As time went on, however, he found the sensory bombardment unbearable. Kenshi retreated to a remote mountain cavern where he remains isolated in a darkened, soundless chamber.
Now let's look at Chameleon, and that's Chameleon with a K. Chameleon's story is driven by vengeance, survival, and the reclamation of a lost identity. As one of the last surviving Saurians, also known as Raptors, from the realm of Zatira, Chameleon's life has been shaped by loss. Her people were nearly wiped out when Shao Kahn conquered and merged Zatira with Outworld. Unlike her male counterpart Reptile, who often serves Khan out of misguided loyalty, Chameleon sees him for what he truly is, the architect of her people's extinction. Rarely seen but never forgotten, she has always operated in the shadows, attempting to warn Reptile, forge her own path, and preserve the memory of her race. By the time of Armageddon, Chameleon is no longer content with hiding. Consumed by grief and purpose, she seeks power of Blaze as a last chance to avenge Zatira. In her ending, she succeeds, unleashing her fury upon Shao Kahn and transforming him into a raptor, a creature now forced to serve her. She does the same to his followers. But at her high point, Chameleon loses control, extending her power beyond her enemies. Soon, both heroes and villains alike are remade in the image of the Raptors, bound to her will. For the first time since Zatira's fall, her people stand tall again, but at a heavy cost. Chameleon's ending is a blend of triumph and tragedy. She fulfills her mission, but in doing so, warps the fabric of the realms and sacrifices the individuality of countless souls. Her story of vengeance, taken too far, and power wielded out, warps the fabric of the realms and sacrifices the individuality of countless souls.
Drinking in the power of Blaze, Chameleon's eyes glowed as she focused her wrath on Shao Kahn. The Emperor would finally pay for destroying Zatira, and so too would those who served him. The pain he endured during his transformation was excruciating, and Shao Kahn, for the first time in his life, pleaded for mercy. She granted him none. Chameleon's power transformed Shao Kahn into a raptor, powerful like her, but subservient to her wishes. She then turned her attention to his allies, and they too were transformed. But she lost control of her newfound power, and mistakenly mutated the forces of light as well. Chameleon now had at her command an army of powerful raptor warriors. The might of Zatira had finally returned.
Kentaro's path is one of brute ambition, fierce loyalty, and an unrelenting hunger for supremacy. Introduced as a Shogun general and one of Shao Kahn's deadliest enforcers, Kentaro has long stood as a towering obstacle, a test of raw strength for anybody who dared challenge Outworld. Though he shares the proud lineage of the Shogun race, Kentaro is uniquely driven by a desire to prove himself superior to all, including fellow Shogun champion Goro. Behind his loyalty lies a simmering ambition to rise above his station and command not as a servant but as a ruler. In his Armageddon ending, Kentaro's ambition is realized in a dramatic fashion. After defeating Blaze, he's granted 4 mystical swords, each capable of absorbing the essence of a powerful warrior. He targets Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Havoc, and Hataru, representatives of fire, ice, chaos, and order. The badges, guided by unseen forces, slay each warrior and capture their elemental and philosophical might. With these forces fused into his being, Kentaro becomes more than just a warlord. He becomes an elemental juggernaut, commanding the fundamental forces of the realms. This transformation is a stark elevation, from enforcer to emperor, from brute to elemental master. Kentaro's ending encapsulates the fulfillment of his deepest desires: power unmatched, legacy secured, and supremacy undisputed. No longer just a pawn of Outworld, he becomes a symbol of unrestrained might, a reminder that ambition, when fused with opportunity, can reshape the very balance of power.
Upon defeating Blaze, a thunderous voice offered Kentaro 4 magic swords. Each would be infused with the power of any warrior of his choosing. Kintaro resolved to give the weapons the powers of fire, ice, chaos, and order. As if wielded by invisible hands, each blade found its victim and slew him. The vanquished souls were transferred to the weapons, and there they will reside. With the powers of Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Havoc, and Hotaru at his command, none will challenge Kintaro and live.
Kira's story is a tragic examination of trust, ambition, and the brutal cost of vulnerability in a world ruled by betrayal. First introduced in Deception, she emerged as a cunning, resilient fighter with a past as a freedom fighter, but her path took a darker turn when she joined the Black Dragon, a clan notorious for its ruthless, cutthroat nature. Unlike her reckless counterpart Cobra, Kira is calculated and strategic, often serving as the brains of their duo. Yet beneath her hardened exterior lies a flicker of loyalty and humanity, traits that the Black Dragon claim are liabilities. In her Armageddon ending, Kira finally achieves what so many seek, godlike power after slaying Blaze, but her triumph is immediately marred by personal loss. Cobra has died in the battle. In a moment of compassion or perhaps misguided loyalty, Kira uses her divine abilities to resurrect him. That act of mercy becomes her undoing. Cobra, ever opportunistic, betrays her without hesitation, absorbing her life force and the power she earned. As he ascends to immortality, he scorns her weakness, seeing her kindness as a fatal flaw. Kira's downfall isn't the result of physical failure, but emotional vulnerability. Her story is a harsh reminder that in the Black Dragon, trust is a death sentence and mercy is weakness. Her tragic fate reinforces the brutal ethos of her clan. Survival belongs not to the strongest, but to the most ruthless.
Kira defeated Blaze and attained divine power. But in the battle, Cobra had been slain. Kira channeled her newfound energy into Cobra's body, slowly returning him to life. As Cobra regained consciousness, he reveled in the surge of godlike power and prevented Kira from severing their bond. Cobra devoured her life force and stole the prize, becoming immortal. He felt no shame in his betrayal. Kira was weak. She should have left him dead. That is the Black Dragon way.
Kitana's arc is a powerful evolution from pawn to protector, symbolizing justice, rebirth, and unity across the Mortal Kombat universe. Introduced as the adopted daughter of Shao Kahn and Princess of Edenia, Kitana began her journey trapped in a web of lies and manipulation. Over time, she rejected her role as outwards obedient warrior, choosing instead to fight for Edenia's freedom, her mother Sindel's redemption, and the protection of the realms. In her Armageddon ending, Kitana's journey culminates in divine ascension. After absorbing Blaze's power, she forges a connection with the Elder Gods, who anoint her as their chosen champion. Elevated beyond mortal constraints, Kitana assumes a new role as the guardian of balance between the realms. Her first act as a divine leader is to assemble an all-elite female fighting force, Sindel, Jade, Sonya, and Li Mei, to take down the forces of darkness once and for all. Their victory reshapes the cosmos, evil is banished to the Netherrealm, and lasting peace is finally secured. Kitana's transformation is both a personal triumph and a symbolic one. By leading a coalition of powerful women, she showcases strength and unity in the power of compassion, resilience, and leadership. Her rise from an oppressed daughter to a God-chosen champion cements her legacy as one of Mortal Kombat's most enduring and inspirational figures.
Absorbing the power of Blaze, Kitana attained a psychic connection with the Elder Gods and became their champion. To preserve the integrity of the realms, she formed an all-female fighting force whose members included Sindel, Jade, Sonya, and Li Mei. Together, they laid waste to the forces of darkness and trapped them in the Netherrealm forever.
Cobra's arc is a brutal warning about the perils of unchecked ego, blind ambition, and the hunger for power without purpose. A Street Fighter turned murderous thrill seeker, Cobra found his true nature within a Black Dragon clan, where violence was not only accepted, it was celebrated. Where other fighters fight for a cause or redemption, Cobra fights for the rush of combat, the thrill of bloodshed. In his Armageddon ending, Cobra's ambition finally catches up with him. After defeating Blaze and claiming divine power, he demands that the Elder Gods make him Lord of the Realms. Amused, or perhaps testing his arrogance, they grant his wish with one condition. No lord may rule without a lady. Cobra selects Kira, expecting obedience or shared glory. Instead, the Elder Gods twist his wish. They transform Kira into a goddess of death, and in one final, ironic act, she kisses Cobra, draining his life and reducing him to ash. His downfall is poetic. Cobra is destroyed not by his enemies, but by his own hubris and the very person he thought he controlled. The Elder God's message is clear. Power demands reverence, not arrogance. In the end, Cobra becomes a footnote, a cautionary tale about those who grasp the divinity without understanding its cost.
Because of his victory over Blaze, Cobra's strength was increased 1,000-fold. Emboldened, he demanded the Elder Gods declare him Lord of the Realms. They assented, but added that no lord should be without his lady. Cobra chose Kira to rule at his side, and the Elder Gods transformed her into a goddess of death. With a kiss, Kira extinguished Cobra's life force and reduced his body to dust. Let all who would make demands of the Elder Gods beware.
Kung Lao's arc is a profound meditation on legacy, destiny, and self-actualization. Throughout the Mortal Kombat series, he's lived in the shadow of his ancestor, the Great Kung Lao, whose defeat at the hands of Goro centuries ago marked the beginning of Outworld's dominance over Earthrealm. This burden has shaped Kung Lao's identity, fueling his rivalry with Liu Kang and driving his quest to prove himself worthy of the Shaolin legacy. In his Armageddon ending, Kung Lao's journey takes an unexpected turn. After defeating Blaze, he's sent back in time, centuries into Earthrealm's past. There, he's granted the chance to enter the Mortal Kombat tournament in his ancestor's place. Seizing the opportunity, Kung Lao defeats Goro and rewrites history, emerging as a legendary champion his ancestors could have never became. This victory alters the timeline so profoundly that Liu Kang never competes and the iconic rivalry between the two monks never formed. In this new history, Kung Lao's legacy stands alone, no longer defined by comparison, but by his own strength and choices. It's a powerful conclusion that reclaims his family honor and affirms his long-sought individuality.
The power released by his victory over Blaze opened a portal, and Kung Lao found himself in Earthrealm hundreds of years in the past. His ancestor allowed him to enter the Mortal Kombat tournament in his stead. Kung Lao defeated Goro and won the tournament, becoming a legend. As a result, Liu Kang never competed, and Kung Lao's rivalry with him never came to be.
Li Mei's story is a powerful narrative of resilience, justice, and transformation from victim to avenger. Introduced in Deadly Alliance, she began as a humble villager from Outworld, caught in the grip of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung's tyranny. Her people were enslaved, and she was manipulated into fighting for her captors, suffering loss and hardship along the way. Over time, Li Mei evolves from a pawn to a fierce fighter driven by a desire to reclaim her freedom and avenge her people. She's defined by her refusal to surrender to despair and her determination to stand against overwhelming evil. In her Armageddon ending, Li Mei finally claims the power to set things right. Empowered by Blaze's energy, she condemns the souls of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung to an eternity of torment. It's here they must endlessly battle wave after wave of enemies. This punishment is not just vengeance, but a symbolic act of justice. Li Mei's transformation from a powerless villager to an arbiter of fate marks the completion of her arc. By delivering retribution to her oppressors, she not only avenges her people, but breaks the cycle of suffering they perpetuated. It's a triumphant moment for a character who earned her strength through pain and perseverance.
Filled with the energy of Blaze, Li Mei had but one purpose for her newfound power. In retribution for slaying her people, she banished the souls of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung to an obelisk. Trapped inside the relic, they must fend off wave after wave of aggressors for eternity. Justice has finally been done.
Liu Kang's character arc is the ultimate realization of his journey. From humble Shaolin monk to legendary savior and finally divine guardian. Since his introduction, Liu Kang has been the moral compass of Mortal Kombat, a champion who fights not for glory but for Earthrealm's protection and the values of justice, balance, and compassion. His path has been filled with both triumph and tragedy. He's won multiple tournaments, died at the hands of his enemies, and been resurrected as a vengeful revenant, separated from his soul and twisted by rage. Yet, even in death, Liu Kang remained a symbol of resistance and hope. In Armageddon, Liu Kang's arc comes full circle. The destruction of Blaze releases an energy surge that reunites his body and soul, restoring him to life, imbuing him with divine power. Reborn in both flesh and spirit, Liu Kang is whole again, ready to face his greatest trial. That trial comes in the form of Raiden, his former mentor, whose soul has been darkened by sacrifice and desperation. Their final battle is bittersweet. Liu Kang is forced to defeat the man who once guided him, but it is this moment that earns him the Elder God's blessing. He's named the new protector of Earthrealm, assuming Raiden's mantle not just in power but in purpose. Liu Kang's ascension to godhood is not just a reward for victory, but a reflection of his unwavering commitment to righteousness. He becomes not just Earthrealm's greatest champion, but its eternal guardian. In him, the ideals of Mortal Kombat live on.
The power released by Blaze's destruction reunited Liu Kang's body and soul. Whole once more and possessing the power of a god, he confronted Raiden, who had been corrupted by his suicide. Liu Kang reluctantly defeated his mentor in an epic clash. With consent of the Elder Gods, he replaced Raiden as protector of Earthrealm.
Mavado's character arc is a meditation on ambition, control, and the unrelenting pursuit of supremacy. As a calculating leader of the Red Dragon clan, he represents a stark contrast to the chaotic violence of the Black Dragon, where his rivals thrive on anarchy. Mavado embodies order through power, discipline, ruthless, and driven by a vision of criminal dominance achieved through strategy, not savagery. Throughout the Mortal Kombat series, Mavado's defining trait has been his loyalty to the Red Dragon's ideals and his own strategic brilliance. His rivalry with Cabal and the Black Dragon isn't merely personal, it's ideological. It's a battle between two worldviews, structure versus chaos, control versus destruction. In his Armageddon ending, Mavado's ambitions are realized in an unimaginable scale. Empowered by Blaze, he awakens a latent ability to telepathically control anyone marked with the Red Dragon symbol. He swiftly conquers both the Special Forces and Black Dragon clan, branding their members and forcing them into servitude. With an army of brainwashed enemies, Mavado extends his reach to Earthrealm, bringing it under his iron rule. Mavado's transformation from master tactician to omnipotent overlord is the ultimate culmination of his arc. The act of branding his enemies isn't just a strategic move. It's a symbolic moment of opposition, a final assertion of dominance. He doesn't just defeat his foes, he rewrites their identities to serve his will. In doing so, Mavado's dream of a world governed by his brand of order becomes terrifyingly real.
Mavado felt the fire of Blaze awaken something within him. Focusing his mind, he found he could control anyone bearing the Red Dragon symbol. Telepathically guiding his clan in battle, Movado quickly subdued the Special Forces and the Black Dragon clan. He then tattooed their faces with the mark of the Red Dragon, so they too would serve him. As his forces grew, Movado gained full control of Earthrealm.
Meat's character arc is a surreal tragedy, an existential journey through the themes of identity, transformation, and a search for meaning. Born as a failed experiment from Shang Tsung's flesh pits, Meat was originally introduced as a joke character, skinless, grotesque, and devoid of context. But beneath his absurdity lies a haunting story of a being struggling to define itself in a world that sees it as nothing. Unlike other fighters driven by purpose or vengeance, Meat's motivation is raw survival. His escape from the flesh pits is an act of both rebellion and desperation, a quiet scream for identity and autonomy in a world that deems him a mistake. He's not evil or ambitious. He simply wants to exist as more than an abomination. In his ending, that longing for identity reaches a cruel climax. After defeating Blaze, Meat gains the ability to shapeshift into anyone he desires. At first, this power seems like a blessing, a chance to finally belong. But as he morphs into countless forms, he loses all sense of self. What begun as a search for identity ends the erasure of it. Meat's ending is very dark. He achieves godhood only to dissolve into autonomy, forgotten and unrecognizable. His arc is not one of triumph, but of existential loss, a warning about the danger of seeking validation through external transformation instead of internal acceptance.
Meat was an experiment who escaped Shang Tsung's flesh pits before he could be completely formed. As the other combatants fought, Meat rushed unseen to the top of the pyramid and defeated Blaze. Godlike energy enveloped him, giving him the power to shapeshift. With the ability to become anyone, Meat lost his sense of identity and disappeared into obscurity.
Mileena's character arc is a twisted exploration of identity, envy, and the corrosive nature of unmet longing. Engineered by Shang Tsung as a hybrid clone of Kitana fused with Tarkatan blood, Mileena has always straddled the line between royal elegance and monstrous rage. Her existence is defined by contrast, desperate to be seen as a princess, yet feared as a freak. Throughout the series, Mileena lashes out in pursuit of legitimacy. Her violent actions are fueled by a deep-rooted desire for acceptance and hatred of the reflection that reminds her she will never truly be Kitana. She doesn't just want power, she wants to be loved as the real princess. In her Armageddon ending, this fantasy becomes reality, but with a dark twist. After absorbing Blaze's power, Mileena is transformed. Her Tarkatan features vanish, replaced by Kitana's beauty, while Kitana inherits Mileena's fangs and monstrous face. Seizing her chance, Mileena takes Kitana's place on the throne of Edenia and locks her sister away in a dungeon where Kitana spirals into madness. This cruel reversal fulfills Mileena's arc, but also exposes its tragedy. Even in victory, her path is one of deception and vengeance. Her longing for identity and love is inseparable from violence. Instead of healing, Mileena projects her pain outward, creating a world where she is adored, but only by erasing the very person she once envied. Mileena's story reminds us that transformation without self-acceptance leads only to deeper torment. Beneath her smile lies a soul forever torn between who she is and who she wants to be.
For an instant, the power of Blaze united Mileena and Kitana. When the energy dissipated, Mileena had become beautiful, but Kitana was horrified to find her mouth filled with elongated, razor-sharp teeth. The change in her appearance allowed Mileena to pose as Kitana and finally take her rightful place on the throne of Edenia. She imprisoned Kitana, who went mad in the palace dungeon.
Mocap's character in Armageddon is one of the franchise's most unconventional and unexpectedly symbolic arcs. Originally introduced as a joke character, a motion capture actor, and expectedly thrown into the chaos of Mortal Kombat, Mocap stood out as an everyman among a roster of warriors shaped by tragedy, sorcery, and revenge. With no mystical powers, vendettas, or grand ambitions, Mocap always seemed like comic relief. Until now. In his Armageddon ending, Mocap meets the same fate as many others. He's killed in the explosion of Blaze's energy, but instead of being forgotten, his soul is cast into the Edenian sky, where it becomes a constellation. Legends spread that this unassuming Earthrealm warrior somehow saved Edenia from Armageddon. His name becomes a myth, taught to future generations as a symbol of unexpected heroism. Mocap's fate is deeply ironic and quietly profound. He achieves a form of immortality that even gods and champions rarely obtain, not through conquest but through remembrance. His story suggests that legacy isn't always forged through might or magic, but through the stories that survive us. In a universe filled with bloodshed and betrayal, Mocap's tale stands as a whimsical yet sincere reminder that anyone, even the most unlikely, can leave behind a lasting mark.
The fury of Blaze's destruction killed all those present at the final battle. Mocap was ripped apart, his soul cast into the Edenian sky. His name is taught in Edenian astronomy to this day. He is the constellation Mocap. Legends will forever tell how the Earthrealm warrior saved Edenia from Armageddon.
Moloch's arc in Armageddon is a brutal expression of unrestrained power and the consequences of senseless destruction. As a monstrous Oni from the Netherrealm, Moloch has always represented primal fury, serving as a sub-boss and muscle for powerful figures like Quan Chi. His role has never been one of leadership or ideology. He is chaos incarnate, driven by destruction alone. Upon defeating Blaze, Moloch ascends to godlike power, becoming what the realms come to know as the Destroyer of Worlds. His first act with this power is to obliterate the pyramid itself, the battleground that marked the climax of Mortal Kombat's greatest conflict. From there, he turns his rage towards Edenia, transforming its lush landscapes into a charred wasteland that mirrors his Netherrealm origins. But Moloch's wrath has a price. In his frenzy, he destroys the Edenian portals, severing his only escape and trapping himself within a desolation he's created. It's a grim twist of fate. Moloch, now more powerful than ever, is left alone in a scorched world with nothing left to conquer. His ending is a dark reminder of unchecked violence. Moloch achieves absolute power but lacks the vision to use it for anything beyond destruction. In the end, he becomes a prisoner of his own fury, a creature incapable of creation consumed by the void he himself carved.
The Oni destroyer Moloch absorbed the gift of godlike power from Blaze and was transformed into a destroyer of worlds. In a gesture symbolic of his new power, he slammed his fist against the pyramid, completely shattering the structure. Moloch then laid waste to Edenia, transforming it into a barren wasteland not unlike the Netherrealm. Because he destroyed the Edenian portals, however, Moloch was trapped there, a victim of his own destructive rage.
Motaro's story in Armageddon is one of pride, pain, and a relentless pursuit of redemption. Once a proud champion of the Centaurian race, Motaro debuted in Mortal Kombat 3 as a towering enforcer for Outworld. His rivalry with the Shokan, especially Goro, has always been fueled by resentment, rooted in the political favoritism that saw the Shokan rise while the Centaurs fell. As Outworld rulers shifted allegiance, Motaro and his kind were marginalized, cursed, and ultimately disfigured, losing their full Centaurian form. Motaro became a symbol of his people's downfall, a warrior bound by shame and hatred, fighting not only for power, but for the dignity of his race. In his Armageddon ending, that suffering is reversed. After observing Blaze's energy, Motaro endures searing pain, but emerges fully restored. His four-legged form returned, this transformation is more than physical. It symbolizes the rebirth of Centaurian honor and the reversal of a long-standing injustice. With his pride renewed, Motaro sets his sights on vengeance against the Shogun, but his ending is a more personal victory. It's a spark that threatens to reignite an ancient war, reclaiming what was lost. Motaro awakens the cycle of conflict that has haunted the realms for generations. His restored form doesn't bring peace, it brings purpose. And in the Mortal Kombat universe, purpose often leads back to war.
Flames lashed at Motaro's body as Blaze released his energy. The searing pain consumed Motaro as he staggered about the top of the pyramid. When at last the fire dissipated, Motaro felt the familiar sensation of walking on 4 legs. He had undone the curse that had transformed his centaur race into minotaurs. With renewed purpose, Motaro vowed that the Shokan would pay dearly.
Nightwolf's arc in Armageddon is a profound tale of sacrifice, spiritual enlightenment, and selfless guardianship. Throughout the series, he stood apart as a grounded, wise shaman, deeply connected to his Native American heritage and the sacred forces that guide him. While other combatants are driven by revenge or ambition, Nightwolf's motives are rooted in duty to protect Earthrealm and preserve the balance between realms. In his Armageddon ending, Nightwolf's journey reaches its highest form. After absorbing Blaze's power, he transcends the physical realm and enters the spirit world, the very source of his shaman power. There, he becomes a living ghost, a guardian spirit who exists between life and death, embodying ultimate spiritual mastery. This transformation is both a blessing and a sacrifice. He gives up his mortal existence to fulfill greater purpose, watching over the boundaries of life, guiding souls, and maintaining the cosmic equilibrium. His compassion shines in one pivotal moment. Nightwolf finds Liu Kang's fragmented soul lost in the spiritual current. Rather than take power for himself, Nightwolf uses the new form to guide Liu Kang back to the world of the living, reuniting him with his body and restoring balance. This act perfectly captures Nightwolf's essence. He becomes more than a warrior. He becomes a healer, a protector of other spirits as well as realms. His legacy is not written in victories or conquests, but in wisdom, compassion, and the quiet strength of those who serve rather than rule.
The power Nightwolf received from Blaze carried him to the spirit world, an existence between realms from which shamanic power originates. He became a living ghost, the ultimate shaman. Nightwolf found his ally, Liu Kang, lost in the spirit energy, and guided him back to the physical world. Nightwolf then reunited Liu Kang with his body.
Nitara's arc is a culmination of a long, desperate quest for survival, power, and the protection of her kind. Introduced as a morally gray vampiress, she has always walked a fine line, neither hero nor villain, but fiercely independent and driven by the desire to free her realm from external control. Her motivations have always centered on the preservation of her people, even if it meant betrayal or manipulation. She clashed with powerful foes, including Azura, who nearly exterminated her race with the cursed blade, and has tirelessly pursued any force that could protect her home from extinction. In her Armageddon ending, Nitara claims that power. Upon defeating Blaze, she is transformed into a blood god, her strength magnified, her thirst insatiable. Horrified, the remaining combatants flee, but none escape. One by one, she turns them, Shao Kahn included, into vampiric thralls. With an undead army of the realm's most powerful fighters, she conquers all. It's the ultimate fulfillment of her goal in a cautionary tale. Her transformation ensures the survival of her people, but at the cost of her morality and the freedom of others. Once a cunning survivor, Nitara becomes a god empress of a vampire empire, reshaping the realms through domination. Her arc speaks to the seductive danger of power gained through desperation, and how noble intentions can curdle into tyranny.
gift of godlike power transformed Natara into a blood god. Horrified, the combatants fled from the pyramid, but none were spared her wrath. Beginning with Shao Kahn, she mutated each of them into her vampire slaves. With the most powerful warriors in the universe at her command, Natara and her unstoppable army easily conquered the Ravens.
Noob Saibot's arc in Armageddon is a haunting meditation on identity, corruption, and the elusive possibility of redemption. Once known as the original Sub-Zero, he was a noble Lin Kuei warrior. But after being slain by Scorpion, his soul was corrupted in the Netherrealm, giving birth to Noob Saibot, a man stripped of humanity and consumed by shadows. As Noob, he abandoned his honor and brotherhood, embracing darkness and serving as a merciless agent of chaos. His story has been one of self-fulfillment, where as a man he was buried beneath betrayal, hatred, and cold ambition. Yet beneath it all, fragments of his old self still linger, quiet, buried, but never fully extinguished. In his Armageddon ending, this inner conflict manifests physically. After defeating Blaze, Noob is pulled into a void and confronted by a spectral version of Sub-Zero, his former self. What follows isn't merely a fight, it's a symbolic war between what was and what is. Neither side can destroy the other. They are two halves of a broken coin. The battle ends with a fusion, a new being formed from the clash of darkness and light. No longer fully Noob Saibot, no longer Sub-Zero. This new entity exists in ambiguity. It represents both a resolution and a question. Has Sub-Zero found peace, or has the darkness simply evolved? Noob's ending doesn't offer easy answers, but that's the point. His arc is about the painful tension between who we were and who we become. Redemption may be possible, but in the world of Mortal Kombat, even that comes at a cost.
With a flash, Blaze was defeated, and Noob Saibot found he was no longer standing atop the ancient pyramid, but in the center of a darkened arena. From the shadows, a figure slowly emerged. It was Sub-Zero, the warrior Noob had been before being slain by Scorpion. Sub-Zero had come to regain control of their divided soul. The two clashed, but neither could best the other. In the end, what emerged was a being that was neither Noob Saibot nor Sub-Zero, but something new.
Onaga's character in Armageddon represents the final realization of a long-brewing quest for power, vengeance, and the reclamation of a stolen legacy. Known as the Dragon King, he was the original ruler of Outworld, who lost his power from Shao Kahn in a betrayal that sparked centuries of rage and planning. Throughout the series, Onaga is portrayed as a master tactician with unyielding resilience, ancient wisdom, and a singular purpose: to reclaim what was once his. In his ending, Onaga accomplishes exactly that. After defeating Blaze and seizing divine power, his first act is vengeance. He brutalizes Shao Kahn, but rather than grant him a swift death, he delivers a far more poetic punishment. Onaga spares his rival only to order Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, Kahn's former allies, to torture him endlessly, turning the throne room into a dungeon of humiliation. Onaga then reclaims the throne room of Outworld, unchallenged and supreme. His arc doesn't shift morally or ideologically. Onaga remains the cold, unrelenting conqueror. But Armageddon delivers the full closure of his narrative: revenge fulfilled, power restored, and legacy reclaimed. His victory is both brutal and calculated, fitting for a ruler whose return was always meant to be not just a comeback, but a reckoning.
The forces of darkness defeated Blaze, and the Dragon King seized the prize for himself, attaining ultimate power. He immediately focused his wrath upon the one being he despised most, Shao Kahn. Long ago, Shao Kahn had stolen Outworld from him. Now Onaga would repay that treachery. Shao Kahn was beaten to the point of death, but Onaga would not see him die so quickly. He ordered Quan Chi and Shang Tsung to deal with the former emperor. While Onaga reclaimed his throne, Shao Kahn remained a captive in his own dungeon, tortured by those who had once pledged to him their allegiance.
Quan Chi's Armageddon ending is a dramatic unraveling of ambition stretched beyond its limits. One of Mortal Kombat's most enduring villains, Quan Chi is the embodiment of deceit, manipulation, and ruthless opportunism. From corrupting warriors to betraying allies, his pursuit of power has always been cunning rather than brute force. And as the saga draws to its climax, he remains as ambitious and dangerous as ever. After defeating Blaze, Quan Chi attains godlike sorcery, his power so immense it shatters his own medallion, a long-standing symbol of his dark ambitions. Emboldened by his surge of power, Quan Chi dares to storm the heavens, launching an assault on the Elder Gods themselves. But in a twist of divine irony, the entire battle for Blaze's power was a trap. The Elder Gods orchestrated it to expose and punish the true instigators of chaos. For his arrogance, Quan Chi is transformed into a Kamidogu, the very artifact he once used to manipulate others, and cast through time to the moment when Shinnok first discovers it. His fate is sealed in poetic justice, eternally imprisoned as a tool of power rather than its wielder. Quan Chi's ending is a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition. He becomes a symbol of self-destruction through overreach, forever reduced from puppet master to powerless relic. His legacy is not one of triumph, but of calculation. No deception is greater than the one we all tell ourselves, that we are all too clever to fail.
The defeat of Blaze enhanced Quan Chi's already powerful sorcery beyond his imaginings. The surge of energy was so great that it shattered his medallion. In his arrogance, Quan Chi ascended from Edenia to assault the heavens. There he confronted me, with the Elder Gods at my side. The quest had been an elaborate trap designed to pinpoint the true source of disruption in the realms. As punishment, Quan Chi was transformed into a Kamidogu, the very medallion he had carried with him for so many years. The Elder Gods cast the magical item back in time, at the exact point where Shinnok had first discovered it.
Raiden's story in Armageddon is a tragic exploration of burden, duty, and the consequence of losing one's moral compass in the face of overwhelming responsibility. As the Thunder God and protector of Earthrealm, Raiden has always served as the series' moral pillar, wise, noble, and guided by a belief in balance. But as the threats to Earthrealm escalate, so too does the weight on his shoulders. Over time, Raiden is forced to bend his principles, make difficult sacrifices, and walk the line between protector and judge. By the time of Armageddon, he's no longer simply Earthrealm's guardian, he's its last line of defense. When he defeats Blaze and absorbs his power, Raiden becomes the most powerful being in existence. But instead of restoring balance, he chooses annihilation. It's kind of symbolic to his first ending in the first game. Fearing that Earthrealm will always be vulnerable, Raiden unleashes destruction across the realms, wiping them out entirely. It's an act rooted in desperation, a desire to protect that transforms into tyranny. The Guardian has become the destroyer, and his power has corrupted the very ideals he once stood for. Raiden's fall is among the most profound in the series. It shows that even gods can falter, that the burden of leadership can twist noble intent into devastation. His ending is not a betrayal of character, but it's the endpoint of a long, agonizing journey where the weight of survival overrides the wisdom of restraint. In trying to save Earthrealm, Raiden loses everything else, including himself.
The Thunder God, Raiden, overpowered Blaze and absorbed the energy intended to transform the sons of Argus. His strength enhanced beyond that of other gods, Raiden became a deity of unimaginable power. Releasing his fury upon the realms, he destroyed them all. None would threaten Earthrealm again.
Raiden's arc is a story of ambition, hidden lineage, and the tragic misuse of power. Originally introduced as a mysterious Edenian warrior with command over storms and water, Rain was initially seen as a perpetual opportunist, powerful but self-serving. However, as the lore deepened, his backstory revealed that he was no ordinary fighter. He is the illegitimate son of Argus, half-brother to Taven and Dagon, and a potential heir to Edenia's throne. This hidden royal bloodline has long fueled Rain's resentment and entitlement, often allying with tyrants like Shao Kahn, not out of loyalty but out of self-interest. Rain sought out recognition by any means necessary. His journey through Mortal Kombat has been marked by a refusal to be overlooked, a rogue prince determined to seize the legacy he believes was denied to him. In his ending, Rain's ambitions are finally realized. After defeating Blaze, he ascends to godhood and is declared protector of Edenia, a title that should represent redemption and honor. But instead of protecting his people, Rain enslaves them. He rules Edenia with an iron fist, driven not by justice but by vengeance and ego. Argus, now an elder god, is powerless to stop the son he once hid. Rain's ending is a grim culmination of his arc. He gains the power and recognition he craved, but lacks the wisdom or compassion to wield it responsibly. Rather than transcend his past, he becomes a tyrant, proving that buried truths and unchecked ambition can corrupt even the most noble seeming titles.
The half-brother of Taven and Dagon, Rain absorbed the power of Blaze and became a full god. I had not anticipated that the victor would be the son whose true identity I have hidden for so long. I bestowed the title of Protector of Edenia on Rain, but my pride in my son was misplaced. He uses his power to enslave Edenia, and now that I have ascended to Elder God status, I am forbidden to stop.
Rico's journey is one of obsession, identity, and the dangerous allure of power. Introduced as a general under Shinnok and Shao Kahn, Rico has always been more than just a loyal enforcer. His fixation on Shao Kahn's legacy, especially the Emperor's helmet, hinted at something deeper, not admiration, but aspiration. Over time, Rico's character has evolved into a mirror of unchecked ambition. Whispers and rumors have followed him. Is he trying to become Shao Kahn? Or worse, is he already possessed by him? His loyalty has always been secondary to his desire to rule. Rico didn't want to serve a throne. He wanted to sit on it. In his Armageddon ending, that desire becomes reality. After defeating Blaze, Rico confronts Shao Kahn himself and defeats him in combat. As he dons the fallen emperor's helmet, he fuses it with his body, transforming him into a savage warlord, an embodiment of everything Shao Kahn represented and more. Rico's fate is the ultimate irony. In striving to surpass his idol, he loses whatever identity he had left, consumed by the very image he once worshipped. The fusion of helmet and flesh symbolize the erasure of self, the cost of obsession. Rico doesn't become a ruler, he becomes a relic of tyranny, driven by power, stripped of a soul.
When the godlike power of Blaze flashed through Rico's body, he felt his old desire for power return more intensely than ever before. Now more powerful than even Shao Kahn, Rico defeated the Emperor and claimed his helmet. As he placed it on his head, his body fused with it, transforming him into a warlord of unprecedented savagery.
Reptile's story is one of sorrow, loyalty, and the enduring search for home. Since his debut as a secret character in the original Mortal Kombat, Reptile has been a tragic figure, last of the Zaterans, a once proud race driven to near extinction. Though often cast as a villain, his motivations have rarely been cruel. More than anything, Reptile has always wanted to restore his people and his realm. Over time, his form has become more monstrous, reflecting his growing alienation and despair. He served tyrants like Shao Kahn and Onaga not out of malice, but out of desperation, hoping that loyalty might earn him a chance to see Zatira rise again. Yet, time and time again, he was used and discarded, his dreams treated as afterthoughts. His Armageddon ending shows that dream is finally within reach. As Blaze's death shakes the realms, Reptile uncovered a sarcophagus containing a female Zateran. Her awakening transforms him. She sheds his monstrous exterior, reverting to a more humanoid form. This physical shift symbolizes something far greater, the return of his people, his culture, his hope. In Reptile's ending offers something rare in Mortal Kombat: redemption without conquest. No longer a pawn, no longer alone, Reptile stands not as a servant, but as a restorer of his people's future. His transformation is more than skin deep. It's a return to identity, a restoration of dignity, and a long overdue reward for his loyalty.
As the shockwave caused by Blaze's death rattled the surrounding crater, the pyramid on which Reptile stood began to crumble. A fissure opened to reveal a sarcophagus of familiar design. Reptile unlocked the curious artifact to find a female Zateran. As she awoke, Reptile felt himself slowly reverting back to his humanoid form. The glory of Zatera will return once more.
Serina's arc in Armageddon is a powerful story of liberation, identity, and the fight to reclaim one's soul. Originally introduced in mythologies as a demon assassin bound to Quan Chi's will, Serina stood out as a figure of tragedy caught between the darkness she was forged in and hope for something better. Her relationship with Sub-Zero became a turning point. As the first person to show her kindness, Sub-Zero offers Serina something she had never known: a chance at redemption. This connection became the catalyst for her journey, leaving behind the horrors of the Netherrealm and seeking refuge with the Lin Kuei. Her battle was much internal as it was external, a struggle to suppress her demonic origins and prove she could be more than what she was created to be. In her ending, Serina's evolution reaches its peak. Revived atop the pyramid by Sub-Zero, she absorbs the energy of Blaze and is granted chiromantic powers, symbolically aligning herself with her protector and solidifying her break from her past. With her new abilities, she defeats Quan Chi and freezes him in solid ice, sealing him in the Lin Kuei Temple alongside Sub-Zero. It's not just revenge, it's justice. Serina's transformation is both literal and thematic, from servant to warrior, from outcast to ally. By claiming her power and standing beside Sub-Zero, she earns her place, not just in the Lin Kuei, but as a symbol of self-determination and healing.
Blaze had dissipated, but the power he had released flowed into Serina. She lay unconscious atop the pyramid until Sub-Zero revived her. Examining her hands, she found that she had gained the ability to freeze. Serina confronted her old master, Quan Chi, and froze him solid. She and Sub-Zero hid the sorcerer in the Lin Kuei Temple, where he will remain forever suspended in a block of ice.
Scorpion's arc has always been rooted in pain, an external cycle of death, vengeance, and grief. Once the noble warrior of the Shirai Ryu, his life was torn apart when his family and clan were slaughtered. Resurrected as the Hellfire Spectre Scorpion, he became a symbol of wrath, his soul chained to vengeance. His target, the man he believed responsible, Sub-Zero. Only later he will learn it was all manipulated by the sorcerer, Quan Chi. Over time, Scorpion evolved beyond rage. Though still deadly, he grew more complex, haunted, but not soulless. His story shifted from blind fury to reluctant alliance, even honor. Yet, through the bloodshed, one desire remained constant: to reunite with the family he lost. In his ending, that wish is finally granted. The fire ablaze resurrects the Shirai Ryu, including Scorpion's wife and child. For a brief moment, Scorpion has everything he ever wanted: his life restored, his pain healed. But it's Mortal Kombat, so tragedy strikes again. Quan Chi appears, abducts Scorpion's son, and flees to the Netherrealm, reigniting the nightmare. This time, however, Scorpion is not alone. With the army of Shirai Ryu at his back, he begins his final hunt, not just for vengeance, but for his legacy. The cycle continues, but now with a new purpose. No longer a lone reverend, Scorpion is a leader, a father, a warrior, and a soul unwilling to let his family be taken from him again.
As the fire of Blaze was extinguished, what appeared in its place brought elation to Scorpion's tormented soul. His ninja clan, the Shirai Ryu, had been fully resurrected. Numbering in the thousands, they covered the surface of the pyramid awaiting Scorpion's command. Among them was Scorpion's wife and son. Their reunion was to be short-lived. The sorcerer Quan Chi suddenly appeared among them. He grabbed Scorpion's young son and disappeared through a portal to the Netherrealm. Enraged, Scorpion ordered his clan to hunt down the sorcerer. He will not rest until his son has been recovered and Quan Chi is dead.
Sector's journey is a cautionary tale about the dehumanizing pursuit of control. Once the proud son of the Lin Kuei's Ground Master, he was among the first to embrace the Cyber Initiative, willingly replacing flesh with machine in the name of efficiency and dominance. Where others like Cyrax and Smoke struggled with what they lost, Sector embraced his transformation, severing all ties to emotion, loyalty, and empathy. Over time, Sector's obsession with logic and control led him down a path of betrayal. He overthrew the Lin Kuei's leadership, forcibly converting its members, and turned the ancient ninja clan into a cold, mechanized regime. His vision was clear, a future where individuality is obsolete, and only perfection through our unity remains. In his Armageddon ending, Sector achieves his final goal. After defeating Blaze, the Power Surge fuses with Cyrax and Smoke, creating a single consciousness, an omnipotent fusion of flesh and circuitry. This entity is not a team, it's a singular god, devoid of identity, built from the minds and memories of three warriors now erased. It's the purest realization of Sector's ideals, and his greatest horror. The line between man and machine has vanished. Freedom, thought, resistance, all replaced by absolute unity under a singular will. The new god declares the rule with chilling finality. All will bow. Sector's fate is the embodiment of dystopia, a triumph of logic and the cost of soul. What began as a pursuit of strength ends in totalitarian perfection, where no one, enemy or ally, remains untouched by the cold grip of assimilation.
Upon defeating Blaze, the power that surged through Sector linked him with his fellow cybernetic ninjas, Smoke and Cyrax. Becoming one mind, they were joined in an abomination of flesh and technology. The realms will soon tremble at the coming transformation. All will bow to the new god.
Shang Tsung's art is the embodiment of unchecked ambition, mastery of deception, and the insatiable hunger for power. Since his debut, he has stood as Mortal Kombat's most iconic sorcerer, a manipulator of flesh and spirit, capable of stealing not just souls but identities. His shifting alliances, deceitful bargains, and the relentless betrayals have made him a constant threat to both heroes and villains alike. At the heart of Shang Tsung's story lies a dual desire to escape servitude and become the master of all he once served. His long-standing servitude to Shao Kahn has always carried undertones of resentment, loyalty born not from faith, but from strategy. In his ending, that moment comes. After absorbing the power of Blaze, Shang Tsung gains the ability not only to reshape himself, but to transform others at will. When Shao Kahn attacks in fury, Shang Tsung humiliates him in the cruelest way possible, transforming the Emperor into a centaur slave and parading his defeat. The throne of Outworld is finally his. This ending marks the perfect, if twisted, culmination of Shang Tsung's arc. The shapeshifter becomes the world shaper, the servant becomes the tyrant. Yet, there's irony in his triumph. His empire, born of manipulation and conquest, is built on the same insatiability that defined his rise. As ruler, Shang Tsung may find that keeping power is far more dangerous than stealing it.
Empowered by the godlike energy he received from Blaze, Shang Tsung found that he could alter the forms of others. Enraged that he was denied the prize, Shao Kahn charged the sorcerer. With a gesture of his hand, Shang Tsung transformed his former master into a centaur slave. Shang Tsung had become the ruler of Outworld at last.
Shao Kahn's character is a towering symbol of dominance, cruelty, and the bleak consequences of defining oneself through conquest. Since his first appearance, he has been the archetypical warlord, a brutal emperor who thrives on invasion, fear, and the total subjugation of others. While many seek power, Shao Kahn lives for it. It is both his fuel and his flaw. Over the years, he has crushed realms, manipulated armies, and broken gods, but his relentless ambition has always masked a deeper emptiness. Shao Kahn cannot rest, cannot be satisfied. His entire identity is built upon the act of conquering, not the experience of ruling. In his ending, he reaches the peak of his power. After defeating Blaze, Shao Kahn's strength multiplies tenfold. He alienates the forces of light and forcibly merges every realm within Outworld, achieving his long-sought dream of universal domination. And yet, it destroys him. With no enemies left to fight, no realms left to invade, Shao Kahn begins to unravel. Madness overtakes him, not from defeat, but from victory. His mind, once sharp and cruel, crumbles under the weight of purposeless rule. His ending is a grim reminder. For those driven solely by conquest, triumph offers no peace, only a new kind of torment. Shao Kahn wins everything, and in doing so, he loses himself.
Blaze was no match for Shao Kahn the Conqueror. His strength increased tenfold. The forces of light could not fend off his final invasion as he merged each realm with Outworld. But his ultimate triumph was soon to be his downfall. With nothing left to conquer, Shao Kahn was driven to madness.
Shiva's arc is a dramatic exploration of strength, empowerment, and the unintended consequences of divine intervention. A proud and fierce warrior of the Shokan race, Shiva has spent her life fighting for the respect of a realm that often views her people as expendable tools of war. As a bodyguard, enforcer, and protector of Outworld's elite, Shiva has always walked the line between loyalty and independence. Despite her powers, she has struggled for recognition, constantly overshadowed by the schemes of her superiors or sacrificed for their ambitions. But in Armageddon, her story takes a sharp, unexpected turn. After defeating Blaze, Shiva is summoned before the Elder Gods, who, desperate to contain the chaos in the realms, imbue her with the power of a goddess. Armed with the Kamidogu, Shiva is tasked with restoring order, but this transformation comes at a heavy cost. Overwhelmed by her divine power and compelled by her new role, Shiva unleashes apocalyptic destruction across the realms. Entire worlds are torn apart and remade in her wake. When the dust settles, reality itself has been reshaped and nothing remains as it once was. Her ending is both a triumph and tragedy. She finally gains the power and recognition she long sought, but only by becoming an instrument of annihilation. No longer a protector of her people, she becomes a force that obliterates the very world she wished to influence. Shiva's legacy is written with catastrophe, not unity, an eternal reminder of what happens when power is given, not earned, and wielded without choice.
At the moment of victory over Blaze, Shiva was blinded by a flash of energy. When she regained her sight, she found herself standing before the Elder Gods. They were clearly alarmed that neither Taven nor Dagon had completed the quest. Their desire to prevent further turmoil prompted them to transform Shiva into a goddess of destruction. One by one, she laid waste to the realms using a powerful Kamidogu. When the realms reformed, nothing was as it had been.
Shinnok's arc is a layered tale of deceit, ambition, and poetic consequence. Once an elder god, he fell from grace by attempting to overthrow his divine peers, and that condemned him to the netherrealm and refined him as a god of darkness and manipulation. Unlike brute conquerors, Shinnok wages war in the shadows through trickery, betrayal, and long-form strategy. Whether orchestrating invasions, corrupting heroes, or allying with dangerous sorcerers like Quan Chi, his schemes always carry echoes of his divine arrogance. In Armageddon, Shinnok's manipulation reaches its most audacious height. Anticipating the chaos of the final battle, he sends a doppelganger to assist Dagon in defeating Blaze, but when Dagon vanishes, the clone seizes the moment and defeats Blaze itself. The explosion of divine energy animates the doppelganger, elevating to a being equal in power to Shinnok himself. Now faced with the ultimate reflection of his own deception, Shinnok must confront the living embodiment of his manipulation. His cleverness, once again his greatest asset, has become his curse.
Shinnok had anticipated the elimination of all the combatants present at the final battle. He sent his doppelganger to aid Dagon in defeating Blaze. But with Dagon's unexplained disappearance, the false Shinnok defeated the Fire Spawn. The power of Blaze breathed life into him, making him as powerful as the real fallen Elder God. Shinnok must now face himself if he is to rule supreme.
Shujinko's story is one of noble intent corrupted by deception, a cautionary tale of blind faith, unchecked power, and the dangers of misplaced purpose. Introduced as a central figure in Deception's conquest mode, Shujinko devoted his life to gathering the Kamidogo, believing he was serving the Elder Gods. Instead, he became the unknown pawn of Onaga, helping to resurrect the very evil he thought he was preventing. Though Shujinko sought redemption for his mistakes, his journey remained marked by manipulation. In Armageddon, his fate takes a dark, ironic twist. After defeating Blaze, the divine energy fuses the abilities and souls of every combatant into Shujinko, making him the ultimate warrior. But instead of bringing balance, this overwhelming power drives him to madness. No longer content to serve or atone, Shujinko slaughters all who oppose him and sets his sights on the Elder Gods themselves. His final transformation is both tragic and terrifying. The man who once saw justice becomes a tyrant, consumed by the very strength he once saw as a gift. The mimic becomes the master, but gaining everyone else's power, he loses himself entirely.
The power of Blaze drew chi from each of the combatants and fused it with Shujinko's soul. Though the battle was over, a new threat arose. One warrior now possessed the powers and abilities of them all. Shujinko went mad with power. After slaying all present, he embarked on a new quest. He would challenge the Elder Gods for control of the realms.
Sindel's arc is a powerful tale of grief, resilience, and the healing power of love. Originally introduced as the sorrowful queen of Edenia, manipulated, widowed, and bound to Shao Kahn, Sindel's early story was steeped in tragedy. But as the series evolved, so did she. No longer just a pawn, Sindel emerged as a warrior queen, wielding banshee screams and a fierce devotion to her daughter, Katana. Much of her pain stemmed from the murder of her husband, King Jared, and the fall of Edenia, a loss that haunted her even in victory. Yet, Sindel's strength came not just from her powers, but from her will to reclaim agency and rebuild what was lost. In Armageddon, her story finds its redemption. After defeating Blaze and absorbing divine power, Sindel reaches beyond the veil of death and restores Gerard's soul to Edenia. Reunited with her family, she helps form the Triad of the Just, a coalition of protectors devoted to peace, justice, and the defense of the realms. Her choice to restore rather than retaliate defines her final evolution. Where others seek domination or revenge, Sindel chooses love and healing. By resurrecting her husband and forging a new alliance with Katana and Jared, she rewrites Edenia's future, not through war, but through unity.
With the power of a god coursing through her, Sindel chose to undo the murder of her husband, Jared, at the hands of Shao Kahn. Reaching into the heavens, she pulled his soul back to Edenia and made him flesh once more. The reunited Jared, Sindel, and Katana formed the Triad of the Just to protect the realms from tyrants like Shao Kahn.
Smoke's arc is a haunting meditation on identity, transformation, and the loss of self. Originally, he was a noble Lin Kuei warrior and close friend to Sub-Zero. Smoke's story began with loyalty and honor, but took a tragic turn when he was forcibly cybernized during the Lin Kuei's automation program. Unlike Sector, who welcomed the change, or Cyrax, who resisted it, Smoke's transformation was against his will, and the pain of losing his humanity remained central to his struggle. The nanobots in his body, symbols of both technological enhancement and the erosion of his soul, became a constant reminder of what he used to be. His life was no longer his own. He was caught between man and machine, haunted by memories of a past self that slipped further away with every mission. In Armageddon, that inner conflict explodes outward. Upon absorbing Blaze's power, the nanobots within Smoke multiply uncontrollably and gain sentience. The result is horrifying. Edenia is consumed and transformed into a massive, living expanse of metallic gray matter, a singular, sentient entity that identifies only as Smoke. No longer a warrior or even a man, he becomes something else entirely, a vast consciousness born from the ashes of his humanity. His individuality vanishes, replaced by an all-consuming technological hive. It's a tragic culmination of his journey. The man who once fought to keep his soul becomes the very force that erases it.
Smoke's power lies in his nanobot technology. Microscopic machines course through his veins, constantly repairing and altering his being. But when infused with the power of Blaze, his nanobots took on a life of their own. Multiplying at an exponential rate, they were soon numerous enough to consume Edenia, transforming the entire realm into a mass of sentient gray material that calls itself Smoke.
Sonya Blade's journey is one of discipline, resilience, and the razor-thin line between justice and vengeance. Introduced as a tough and determined Special Forces operative, Sonya has spent her entire life chasing down threats to Earthrealm like the Black Dragon leader Kano. Her rivalry with Kano has always gone deeper than duty. He represents everything she fought against: chaos, cruelty, and the pain inflicted on innocent lives. For Sonya, defeating him has never just been about justice, it's been personal. In Armageddon, Sonya is finally given the chance to end that conflict for good. After defeating Blaze, she's granted near omnipotent power. She doesn't seek immortality or cosmic authority. Instead, she turns her focus inward. With a single glare, she incinerates Kano, leaving nothing but ash. But she doesn't stop there. Empowered by the satisfaction of long-awaited vengeance, Sonya wipes out the remaining members of both the Black and Red Dragon clans. In one sweeping act, she erases the greatest threats that have haunted her past and Earthrealm's future. Her ending is both cathartic and unsettling. Sonya brings peace, but at what cost? What began as a fight for justice ends in blood and fire, with her enemies silenced not through arrest or trial, but through execution. She wins, but the question remains, did she uphold justice or refine it?
As reward for her victory, Blaze offered Sonya any power she desired. Glowing with energy, she turned and faced Kano, who had just reached the top of the pyramid. Her gaze burned into Kano. With a final scream of agony, Sonya's nemesis exploded in a cloud of ash. A mere glance, and her wish had been granted. Kano lived no more. With this new power, she incinerated the remaining members of the Black Dragon and Red Dragon clans, clearing the way for a new era of peace.
Stryker has always been Mortal Kombat's grounded enforcer, a beat cop in a world of gods, monsters, and ancient prophecy. With nothing but a badge, tactical gear, and sheer will, Stryker represented order in the face of chaos. He believed in due process, the chain of command, and fighting for what's right, even if the enemies were superpowered and the odds were impossible. But law has limits, and in Armageddon, those limits are shattered. After defeating Blaze, Stryker is stripped of his rigid moral framework. The divine power cruising through him doesn't corrupt, it clarifies. He sees the failures of systems, the corruption of institutions, and the loopholes exploited by the wicked, and he decides, enough is enough. Now operating outside the law, Stryker becomes a one-man shadow force, a vigilante who doesn't wait for warrants or backup. No more red tape, no more rules. He disappears into the margins, striking from the dark against anyone who preys on the innocent. His name becomes a warning, widespread across the realms, not a police officer, but a phantom of justice.
The fire of Blaze burned away Stryker's previous notion of justice. The power coursing through his soul inspired him to fight injustice on his own terms. No longer would he allow himself to be confined by the law. He would strike evil from the shadows, a vigilante who would show no mercy to the corrupt. He went into seclusion to prepare for his one-man assault on the wicked. Soon all the realms will know the name Stryker.
Sub-Zero's journey has always been about legacy, how to honor it, how to evolve from it, and ultimately, how to survive the weight of it. Throughout the Mortal Kombat series, Sub-Zero's evolution is marked by a rare kind of introspection. While others chase power for its own sake, he has spent his life balancing duty to the Lin Kuei with compassion for Earthrealm and those around him. His Chiromancer abilities weren't just tools. They were discipline. They reflected his control, his restraint, and his desire to preserve peace, even in a world defined by chaos. But in Armageddon, that balance finally breaks. After defeating Blaze, the power coursing through Sub-Zero amplified by the Dragon Medallion elevates him beyond mortal limits. He ascends as an ice god, a living embodiment of everything he's ever stood for. But there's a catch. The Elder Gods didn't choose him. He wasn't destined for this role, and in their eyes, that makes him an abomination. Instead of being celebrated, Sub-Zero is hunted, targeted by the very beings who claim to protect the realms. His greatest power becomes his greatest curse. It's a tragic but fitting end. Sub-Zero has always walked the line between warrior and peacemaker, between vengeance and redemption. In his final form, he doesn't become a monster but a martyr, a man who wanted to protect realms so badly he became something the realms could not accept.
The Dragon Medallion, having amplified the godlike power granted him by his victory over Blaze, Sub-Zero was no longer a mere warrior, but an ice god. He was, however, a false god. He had become a deity without the consent of the Elder Gods, who sent their champions to hunt him down and destroy him.
Lastly, we're going to talk about Tanya. Tanya's story has always been about one thing: power. A citizen of Edenian birth, Tanya has betrayed her homeland more times than most people can count, allying with Shinnok, Quan Chi, and even Shao Kahn when it suited her. But what separates Tanya from your standard villain is she never lies about who she is. She's not hiding behind a cause. Every move is calculated. Every betrayal is strategic. She's not reckless. She's relentless. In her Armageddon ending, Tanya finally cashes in every debt, every deception, and every dark deal she's made. After absorbing Blaze's power, she becomes the Dragon Caller, a sorceress so powerful she can summon legions of dragon spirits to do her bidding. With an army of monsters at her back, she doesn't just climb the ladder, she burns it behind her. Realm by realm, Tanya conquers them all, even Shao Kahn. The face of tyranny in Mortal Kombat is forced to bow and call her Master. It's the perfect payoff for her arc. Tanya doesn't win by brute force. She wins because she never played by anyone else's rules. Her ambition was always her superpower, and now it has become the reason she sits on top of the world.
The fire of Blaze transformed Tanya into a being known as a Dragon Caller. With a mere thought, she was able to summon dragon spirits from the ether into corporeal form. With an army of dragons at her command, she conquered the universe realm by realm. Soon Shao Kahn himself would call her Master.
Let's dive into the gameplay of Mortal Kombat Armageddon, because this game gives you a lot to do. There's your standard fighting, of course, but also conquest mode, create a character, and even a chaotic little minigame called Motor Combat. It just mixes things up so fittingly. The core fighting system is built on the same foundation as Deadly Alliance and Deception. Whether you loved or hated that formula, Armageddon does make a few meaningful tweaks. Now, before we get too deep, one major change to note: the number of fighting styles per character was reduced from 3 to just 2, and in some cases even 1, usually just for boss characters. This was done to help manage the massive 62 character roster. So what's new? First up is the wake up system. You can now choose to stay on the ground after being knocked down to avoid incoming attacks, or launch a pop-up attack to punish anyone who gets too aggressive. It's a small touch, but it fixes a lot of the frustrating cheap shots that plague the last couple of games, especially when fighting bosses. Next up, we have parries. By pressing back and holding block at the same time, you can interrupt an opponent attack and shut down their combo. It's a smart defensive tool, and if your timing is perfect, you can even parry mid-combo. But mistime it and you'll be left wide open, so there's a risk and reward. Aerial combat also makes its debut. After launching your opponent into the air, you can juggle them with a string of airborne attacks, knock them down, and if timed right, even hit them again as they rebound off the ground. The system includes Yukimi rules, which lets you recover from the ground and avoid getting caught in those flashy, floaty air combos. Admittedly, these air combos are pretty generic, but they're still fun to pull off and fun to watch. Breakers return as well. You got 3 per match, and you can even use them mid-air, adding another layer of strategy to both ground and aerial combat. There are also some subtle but welcome improvements throughout. For example, remember how in Deception, if you knocked someone into a death trap at the end of a match, the game will awkwardly cut off the screen and just say you win? That's been cleaned up. Now the game waits until your opponent is actually dead before the match ends. Small detail, but definitely goes a long way. Stage interaction is back and better than ever. Multi-tier arenas, death traps, and now you can smack your opponent to the ceiling or even break through it. New animations for throws, victories, and intros were added to give the massive cast some personality, which is definitely appreciated. One thing that did take a hit though is the arcade endings. Instead of cinematic artwork or animated scenes like in Deadly Alliance and Deception, you now got your character performing martial arts while the ending is narrated over. It's not as exciting, but it does allow for your custom character to be included, which makes sense even if their endings aren't voiced. Now, let's talk about fatalities, or rather, create a fatality. Gone are the unique, over-the-top finishing moves we were used to. Instead, you build your own finisher by stringing together multiple gruesome attacks, then ending it with a classic like a head rip or a spine tear. Sounds pretty cool in theory, but here's the problem. Every character uses the same pool of fatality moves, so nobody feels distinct anymore. At first, it's a bit disappointing, especially for fans who look forward to each character's signature kill. But to be fair, there's a silver lining. Instead of watching the same couple of finishers over and over again while climbing the ladder, you can now experiment. The more inputs you chain together, the shorter your window gets to land the next one. So it becomes this little mini game of how far you can go before you mess up. It's more interactive, and once again, it works with your creative fighter too. So Yeah, while it doesn't quite capture the spirit of the series' most iconic fatalities, it still adds a level of engagement that fits the game's make your own philosophy. Now, while all this might sound solid on paper, let's be real, there are some weak points here too. The fighting system at its core still doesn't quite hold up against genre heavyweights like Tekken or Soul Calibur. Animations can look stiff and awkward, and because of the series' dollar combo system, your attack options feel pretty limited. Combos don't flow naturally into each other, and outside of preset strings, there's not much room for improvisation. But to be fair, no one was expecting Midway to reinvent the entire combat engine for Armageddon, not with 62 characters to balance and a deadline to hit. Given that, the improvements they did make are still commendable. Let's move on to the Conquest mode. This time around, Conquest is less like an extended tutorial and more like an actual adventure game with a structure loosely based on Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. You follow the story of Taven as he fights enemies, avoids traps, and unravels the events leading up to the tournament. If you weren't a fan of Deception's Conquest mode, where half the time was spent chatting with NPCs, you're in luck. This version is faster, more action-packed, and you're doing a lot more actual fighting. As you progress, you'll gather coins and unlockables, and while the dialogue is pretty B-movie level, it's serviceable. This isn't the narrative centerpiece of the game, and it doesn't pretend to be. At the end of the day, it's just fun to mash through waves of enemies, crack open hidden items, and unlock some cool extras. Then there's create a character, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You pick a gender, design the outfit, tweak the face, add the accessories, you know the drill. What makes this one stand out though is how detailed the move customization gets. You can assign specific attacks to each button and even build your own combo enders. You also get to write a character bio, which shows up if you beat the arcade ladder with your custom fighter. Subscribe to Retro Phantom. Now, some downsides, customizing your character gets expensive, and early on you'll probably be stuck with a pretty bare bones fighter, unless you saved up a lot of coins during Conquest mode. Also, everyone kind of ends up looking like they're over 30, which makes sense given the violent nature of the game. Would be kind of weird to see a 15-year-old doing some spine rips. Shout out to Shichinko. The real catch, you can only make one character per profile, which is a bit of a letdown. Still, nothing stopping you from creating multiple profiles if you want to mess around. Despite the limitations, it's a fun system that adds a surprising amount of replay value. And now for the wild card, Motor Combat. Yes, it's basically Mario Kart with Mortal Kombat characters. You get 10 miniature versions of classic fighters racing through deadly tracks. Each one has a unique special move, and stars on the track lets you activate those abilities. Hazards, kind of like death traps, can slow you down, but won't knock you out entirely. You'll also find coins scattered around the road, which can be spent in the main game. That said, Motor Combat is the weakest of the bunch. There are only 5 tracks, and you can't adjust the number of laps. It feels more like a bonus mode than a fully fleshed out feature. But it's still worth a try, especially if you got friends over. And here's a plus, both standard combat mode and Motor Combat support online play. So around that time, if you were able to connect, there was some solid multiplayer fun to be had. So where does that leave Armageddon overall? With a massive roster, a deep character creator, and a revamped Conquest mode, there's definitely a lot to keep you hooked. Their fatality system might turn off longtime fans, and limited movesets per fighter can feel restrictive. But this wasn't trying to revolutionize the series, it was trying to celebrate it, warrants and all. That said, Armageddon wasn't without its rough edges. Take the subway station level, for example. The trains themselves, totally generic. No graffiti, no wear and tear, no ads, nothing to ground them in the gritty world of Mortal Kombat's known for. And some of the background environments overall just feel uninspired. But don't let that take away from the rest of the visuals, because when the game does hit, it hits hard. The graphics are stunning. Blood sprays in buckets, coats the floor, and splatters across the screen in glorious, gory detail. Most stages still carry that dark, oppressive tone you'd expect. And yes, the death traps from Deception are back, letting you send your opponent to a gruesome end with a well-timed shove. Audio-wise, the music is a strong point. Each background track fits its setting perfectly, whether it's a haunted temple, icy wasteland, the twisted soul chamber of Shao Kahn himself, and there's always this underlying intensity pushing you forward. But the sound effects and voice work, bit of a mixed bag. Some attack sounds work great, others feel stock, generic, and in battle most characters sound way too similar, like the same voice actor was pitched up or down a few notches for each fighter. No real flavor or memorable battle quotes aside from Scorpion's "Get Over Here," which thankfully is still intact. But where I ran into the most problems was with the controls and gameplay. The control scheme from Deadly Alliance and Deception is mostly intact, but the movement can feel clunky, especially when trying to dodge. That 3D sidestep, it's hit or miss. Jumping over a projectile might send you sideways instead, and precision is key in a fighting game. The fighting styles will also scale back to just 2 per character, 1 hand-to-hand, 1 weapon. While functional, a lot of them blur together with only minor tweaks in names and moves. Practice mode becomes a must if you want to master everyone. Thankfully, Conquest mode's controls are forgiving, borrowing heavily from Shaolin monks, but don't get too comfortable. Some of the traps are brutal, and dying to an instant kill over and over again can get frustrating fast. Shout out to Mythologies. Still, when you step back and look for the full package, Armageddon is jam-packed with content. You've got Motor Combat, a story-driven conquest, a full arcade ladder, and of course, create a character. But there's some noticeable absences, like the lack of a proper gallery or ending viewer. For completionists, that stings, especially with this game being marked as the end of Mortal Kombat storyline. If you want to see how each character's story is wrapped up, you'd have to beat an arcade mode with every single fighter and keep notes. So yeah, it's a loaded game. It gives you plenty to do, and despite a few missteps, whether in gameplay polish or presentation, it's still a decent swan song for the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat Armageddon dropped for the PlayStation 2 on October 9, 2006 in North America, October 26 in Australia, and October 27 in Europe. North America also got a premium edition for the PS2 that came in a steelbook case. This version was stacked. It included a 60-minute bonus DVD with the History of Fatalities documentary, updated character videos for over 50 fighters, and an animated cell of the cover art signed by Ed Boon himself, and an arcade-perfect version of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 right on the disc. There were 4 different package designs, some of which were exclusive to specific retailers, featuring either different characters or the iconic Mortal Kombat Dragon logo. The other port of Mortal Kombat Armageddon was the Xbox port, which came out only in North America on October 16, 2006. So it's basically a 1-to-1 with the PS2 version, very minor differences, nothing truly major. But the biggest surprise port was the Nintendo Wii version. It was released months later, May 29th, 2017 in North America, June 14th in Australia, and June 15th in Europe. This port introduced motion-based controls using the Wii Remote, but it also supported the GameCube and classic controllers if motion wasn't really your thing, like a new endurance mode, a Wii Remote training mode, updated menus, and brought back Chameleon with a K as a playable fighter. The trade-off? No online play. Some of the infinite combos from earlier versions were also patched out to this one. So it really depends on which port really fits your style and what you wanted to play. For me, I've always gone for the PlayStation 2. But if you want to go for the Nintendo Wii, I actually encourage a nice trial of it. Now let's talk about Mortal Kombat Armageddon, the final chapter in the 3D era. This game had a mixed but generally favorable reception. Critics praised it for how ambitious it was, but they didn't hold back on the flaws either, especially how it tried to do everything and ended up spreading itself a bit too thin. On the surface, the numbers looked great. Game rankings gave it a 76 on the PS2, 78 on the Xbox, and 72 on the Wii. IGN called it the pinnacle of Midway's fighting franchise, mainly because of its massive roster and expanded conquest mode. And yeah, the roster was insane. 62 characters, basically everyone who had ever thrown a punch or fired a fireball in the series showed up. It was a greatest hits approach that felt like a love letter to longtime fans. You also had the return of Conquest mode, borrowing heavily from Shaolin Monks, blending action-adventure gameplay with some RPG elements and a new story centered around two brothers, Taven and Dagon. On top of that, we got a created character where you could customize your fighter's appearance and moveset, and even a chaotic Mario Kart style minigame called Motor Combat. Sounds great on paper, right? Well, here's where things start to crack. To make room for everyone, the game had to cut corners. One of the biggest complaints? They scrapped individual character fatalities in favor of a generic create a fatality system. Instead of watching your favorite character pull off a signature brutal finisher, you were just inputting some button sequences for customizable but repetitive kill animations. It felt soulless. And with so many characters on the roster, balancing became a mess. A lot of fighters felt like copy and paste, sharing similar move sets and animations. Also, while previous games gave characters 3 fighting styles, Armageddon trimmed that down to just 2, further reducing what made each character feel unique. Even the story didn't stick the landing. The narrative tried to go big, but it came off feeling disjointed. Fan favorite characters were sidelines. New protagonists like Taven didn't get the development they needed, and legacy characters like Kira were barely given a role. What should have been an epic send-off just felt rushed. Even a reviewer from GameFAQs put in his own 2 cents, saying, "This game could have been fantastic if they had put some real effort into fleshing out all the characters. They made a big deal out of having a huge roster, but the quality of the characters on their roster is horrible. They took shortcuts and got rid of some of the major things that distinguish each character, their stories and fatalities, and it shows in the overall low quality of the game. There's a major focus on Conquest mode as a way to push the story and to obtain more gameplay options, which is a shame because Conquest mode story is horrible and it really isn't fun. You shouldn't have to play it to unlock all the good stuff, particularly the create a fighter options. Even Create a Fighter, which I say again is honestly a lot of fun, suffers from some severe limitations that could have been fixed with just a little effort. Quantity does not equal quality. That's something Midway does not understand. Ultimately, Armageddon's biggest sin was choosing scale over substance. It wanted to be everything at once, a giant roster, custom modes, adventure gameplay, minigames, but didn't fully deliver on any of it. As one IMDb review put it, Armageddon delivers on quantity but falters heavily on quality. You're starting to see an ongoing theme here, I'm sure. The fact that there was no gallery mode or a mode for you to see all the endings in the game was another issue in contention, even for fans that like the game. Someone stated, "There's another small flaw in this game, and that it lacks a gallery mode where you can see which characters you beat the game with. I'm one of those players who has to beat arcade mode in a fighting game with every character before I get satisfied. But 62 characters are a lot, and it's easy to forget if you have finished it with each character. Speaking of finishing the game, it's a shame that Midway couldn't create real endings like the previous 2 games had for each character. Instead, you just get to see your character practice a couple of moves, and the narrator tells you what happened after that your character have won the tournament. A shame for an otherwise excellent game. Still, in retrospect, it's remembered as an ambitious farewell to the 3D era. For die-hard fans, it was a content buffet, but it also served as a wake-up call, showing exactly why sometimes less is more." Now, I gotta say, it's been one heck of a ride exploring the 3D era of Mortal Kombat. And if I'm being 100% honest with you all, I don't have any major gripes with Armageddon. Sure, there are a few things I don't like, but nothing that ruins the experience. If anything, it shows there's always room for improvement. Just look at Deadly Alliance. When it dropped, the Conquest mode was flat out disappointing. Then Deception came in and absolutely crushed it. Honestly, the best conquest mode in the series. After that, we got Shaolin Monks, which nailed the adventure format while staying true to that signature Mortal Kombat feel. But then came Armageddon. And yeah, there was a slight disconnect. Not a failure, but a noticeable step back. And it really makes you wonder, why wasn't this the best game of the era? It should have been. I mean, we had Create a Fighter, which is cool in theory, but imagine if you could have taken your custom character through the conquest mode. I get it that it could have raised some questions for continuity if this era had continued. But let's be real, Taven's story and this whole timeline gets retconned in like 2 videos from now. So why not go big or go home? Give players a little more bang for their buck. Now, from a fan's perspective, I did enjoy what Armageddon was aiming for. It felt like Mortal Kombat Trilogy 2.0 on the PlayStation 2. Packed with characters, including ones we hadn't seen playable before. Seeing Serena, Kia, and Jataka from Mythologies, or even Shiva, who was supposed to be dead in Deception, was a treat. For longtime fans, it was a love letter, but I do think this game might have been better received if it was released as a launch title for the next generation instead of being a swan song for the 6. Hardcore fans will always ride or die, but when it comes to growing the audience, I'm not sure this game pulled it off. The 3D era as a whole tends to catch a lot of heat for its forgettable characters. I mean, when's the last time we saw Taven and Dagon in a modern Mortal Kombat game? Heck, Havoc just made a return in Mortal Kombat 1, but beyond that, most of these characters have been left in the shadows. That said, Armageddon did cement the 3D era's legacy. It was the trilogy of this generation, massive roster, packed with lore, but it also a little rough around the edges. You play it for the love of the franchise, but it could feel forgettable at times. Recycled endings, no cinematics, and a conquest mode that kind of falls apart by the end. It makes you wonder what could have been if they just took more time. A common issue with Midway back in the day, just look at their track record with Mythologies and even Special Forces, which probably should have got scrapped. Still, this game holds a lot of sentimental value for me. I enjoy the challenges, I love the characters, and I respect what it tried to be. But even with all that, there are moments where it just feels hollow. A big roster, but not much soul. Mortal Kombat Trilogy was deep and still felt alive. Armageddon was deep too, but sometimes it just felt heavy for the wrong reasons. If you never played it, but followed along with this retrospective, I'd say give it a shot and form your own opinion. It's not terrible. Nothing is ever beating Special Forces in that department. But truth be told, Armageddon was the definition of quantity over quality. A fat game, no doubt, but not always a fulfilling one. If you made it to the end of this video, I salute you. This was not an easy game to cover in this short amount of time, but here we are. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and drop a like. It really helps push this content out to more viewers and gets me one step closer to hitting that 10,000 subscriber goal this year. Next week, we're back with the Rockstar Takeover, diving into GTA San Andreas. And in 2 weeks, we step into the HD era with Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. There's only 3 Mortal Kombat retrospectives left. So let's finish this thing, and let's finish this thing strong. Once again, thank you all for watching. This is the Retro Phantom, signing out.